Are you a fan of the Iron Sysadmin podcast? If you are, don't forget you can support the show via Patreon at patreon.com/ironsysadmin. Or you can buy merchandise at teespring.com/stores/ironsysadmin. And thank you. News, ops, and a little bit of paranoia. Welcome to the Iron Sysadmin podcast. Welcome, folks, to this day before Christmas episode of the Iron Sysadmin podcast. I'm your host, Nate, and I'm joined tonight by the one and only Uncle Marc.
Not a real holiday. Christmas Eve is barely a holiday.
It's totally a holiday.
This is not a holiday.
It should be a holiday. Listen, for the number of people I normally deal with at work that were not there today, it may as well have been a holiday.
I'm not saying that. That might very well be true, but today is not really a holiday.
Christmas Adam, J. Scar says. Because Adam came before Eve? Was that it?
That's terrible. Yep.
Just terrible. Okay, so if anybody's watching the stream and notices anything weird, let me know right now, because I switched computers. We'll talk about that later in the chat. I switched computers, and I think everything's set up right. But if there's anything wrong, tell me now before we get way into the show. I'll cut this out of the recording later.
Tell me now, did you get very far? Oh, sorry. A little bit of grease.
All right, J-Scar says it looks good. It sounds good, looks good. On my last machine, I had all these weird problems. Remember we were having that thing where the stream would just suddenly go to, like, staticky crap? And I can't remember what I did to fix that on the old machine. So I'm hoping it doesn't show up again tonight.
So you fixed it by replacing the old machine.
Well, no, remember that was like a year ago, and I did something to fix it. I don't remember what. I should have wrote it down, I guess.
I got nothing. Yeah, writing stuff down. That's a hell of an idea.
It is.
Hell of an idea.
A hell of an idea. All right, so tonight on this Christmas Adam, Marc and I.
On this very Christmas night.
Yes.
Trans-Siberian Orchestra.
You know, neither of us put that in our chat. We're absolutely gonna talk about it. I guarantee.
Ah, fantastic.
Anyway, we're going to talk tonight about, well, I'm going to start off by talking about VR because it's a fun thing, which I've only been into VR, quote unquote, into VR for about, I don't know, 6 months or so.
Something like.
Maybe less, right? And I am just, every time I put on that headset, I am amazed.
You got the headset, you picked that up in the summer, right? When you guys came for the barbecue.
Yeah, right. That was July.
Right? Was that the event?
And then,
where you grabbed the headset? Okay.
And then a couple months went by before I bought the controllers and the sensors.
You've really
so
just
it might be like 2 to 3
VR
months.
for like a quarter.
Yeah, not even half a year.
If I'm going to talk like a work person.
If you're going to talk like a work person. It's the end of quarter. I'm going to have to put in all my VR sales numbers or something.
Most important quarter ever. Yeah.
Most important. Yeah, the VR quarter. Anyway.
Yeah, Twitch looks good. I agree, J-Scar.
There's this announcement that came a couple months ago now from the android himself, Mark Zuckerberg, about his vision for the metaverse.
What do humans like? Humans like barbecue sauce.
Right.
I will put barbecue sauce on my bookshelf. Maybe I will fool the humans.
That was weird.
It is crappy barbecue sauce, but
since
I'm a robot,
like Sweet Baby Ray's or something.
Sweet Baby Ray's is all right, but if I'm Mark friggin' Zuckerberg,
you're not using Sweet Baby Ray's.
I'm gonna use something a little more high class than Sweet Baby Ray's.
I know one thing.
You grab that at Giant on sale.
One thing about Sweet Baby Ray's is that it is gluten free, and I only know that because we have a relative that is gluten intolerant, and every time we do a barbecue that she's going to be here, we have to use something that is gluten free. So maybe Mark Zuckerberg is also gluten intolerant, and that's why he uses Sweet Baby
cannot tolerate gluten. Must be gluten free.
So anyway, I've got feelings. We've touched about this before on the show, but I said then that we would probably have an upcoming show where we talked about the concept of the metaverse and virtual worlds and online worlds, and that's going to start tonight. I think this may be a series, maybe not back-to-back series, but I think we're going to revisit this topic a few times, especially as the space evolves.
Yeah, the way that we jibber-jabber and go down rabbit holes, I have absolutely no doubt. And
well, I mean, I'm going to tell you right now, I have a very optimistic outline in the show notes tonight.
I saw, and your outline looks good.
It's very optimistic.
And, by the way, this is a total coincidence that I'm wearing my Dungeon Master hoodie. Did not take that into account when I put this on this morning that we'd be talking about the metaverse. But I think it's kind of appropriate.
Sure, kind of appropriate. User-created virtual worlds, very Dungeon Mastery. So, first, I kind of just wanted to reminisce very slightly about just like where the VR space has gone in my lifetime. Like I remember when I was a kid, and this is going to make me sound young to you, Marc, I'm sure, because the movie Lawnmower Man was like, what, a mid-90s, early 90s movie?
Something like based nothing at all on the Stephen King story named The Lawnmower Man.
Yeah, right. But I remember that movie, and I remember that was like the first thing I can remember in my life that referenced virtual reality. I also remember in maybe the same time frame watching like Discovery specials, Discovery Channel specials, when they still talked about science on the Discovery Channel, about computer animation and 3D rendering and how it was such a difficult problem to solve at the time when we're dealing with 486s, right? We didn't have
It was
even
a difficult problem to solve.
It was a difficult problem. Not only the processing power, but I remember them talking about just like interactions between objects, right? Like when an object collides with another one, there's a whole bunch of chaos involved there, and the computers of the time couldn't figure out chaos because they're all about
too much math.
Yeah, there's right. It's just too much to deal with. But anyway, I've already gone down a rabbit hole. There we go, right down the rabbit hole. Anyway, start hopping along. We need little rabbit ears to put on. Anyway, so that was like 30 years ago, right? That sounds like a long time, but it's also not really a long time when you think about like.
Yeah. We can call it that. Sure, why not?
Listen, if you say it's a long time, then I have to start admitting
long time ago
that I'm getting older.
I can still remember when the computers used to make you smile.
Anyway, at that time, virtual reality was very much science fiction. It was in a movie, right? There may have been some kind of prototype virtual reality stuff. I remember reading books and tinkering with programs that were all about quote-unquote VR, but they were really just like simulators, kind of like first-person shooters are today, right? There wasn't goggles you'd strap on. There wasn't motion tracking. There wasn't...
The goggles, they do nothing.
And then there was...
my eyes!
Then in like, what was it, the late 90s probably? The Virtual Boy, remember the Virtual Boy?
Well, that's my profile picture on my Red Hat Google profile is me with my friend John from Merck's Virtual Boy. He brought it into work one day.
Right.
He snapped a picture of me staring over it in the conference room. It's one of my favorite pictures of myself ever because it's kind of cool.
Yeah, I mean, the Virtual Boy was neat. I had a friend that had one. I don't remember if I ever even played a game on it, to be honest.
I think it had about a half a dozen games. It was a ridiculous commercial flop.
We can
absolutely say that for sure.
Yeah, and that's what they were dubbing that as, like VR of the time, mainly because it was kind of immersive. It would.
It was VR at the time.
Yeah,
it was just friggin' Some technologies are just ahead of their time.
Yeah.
Think of Apple when they released the Newton. People laughed at the Newton, but that thing was really kind of cool. But its reach, is it the reach has exceeded its grasp? Is that the expression? Like what they were trying to do with it, the tech just was overwhelmed and couldn't handle. But the idea of it could do handwriting recognition,
right?
And it was that personal digital assistant you carry around with you. I mean, the Newton is what led to a lot of the concepts on that's what's led to smartphones.
Yep, and then the Palm Pilot, yeah.
And what's funny is the Apple Watch, when you do writing mode in that, like when you're responding to a text by scribbling, it's pretty much the same alphabet that was on the Newton. It's really cool. So, right. So often the first attempts at stuff are ridiculously dumb or are
right.
I think we've relabeled that to being a tech demo.
Yeah, right. So the Virtual Boy was a tech demo that hit the shelves at Walmart and people actually bought and then were disappointed with. And wonder whatever happened. I wonder if my friend still has. Well, unfortunately, that's the friend that I've talked about that passed away when he was relatively young. I wonder if his family still has the Virtual Boy or if it just got thrown away in a dumpster somewhere. That would be a shame.
It probably got dumpstered. I hate to say that, but
that'd be a shame. I'll have to reach out to his sister.
The kind of thing that would be dumpstered. Because
that'd be awesome. Just to, well, I mean, you've seen one recently in person, apparently, at least 5 years ago.
Back at Merc. So
yeah. Anyway,
let's call that the early 2000s.
We'll get out the Peter Cottontail theme song.
Sometime between 2004 and 2015.
So, anyway, right. So the Virtual Boy was kind of like the first consumer-grade virtualization, or not virtualization, VR, virtual reality device that I can remember, right? At least that was something that you could just buy and bring home. The average person could, right? I'm sure that there was some lab somewhere that had cool VR set up.
So hang on a second.
Uh-huh.
Let's stop. How do you define virtual reality? Because that itself can be a little bit of a tricky situation.
Yeah, I mean, I guess in my mind, I picture virtual reality as the thing that we have today, which is consumer grade, goggles you strap on, and you can explore a virtual world in a way that feels immersive, right?
Okay.
Do
So
you have a different definition?
So yeah, let's get a little more generic.
Okay.
I'm going to say virtual reality is any technology that fools your monkey brain into believing something that's not real is real.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess you could say that. And that's kind of what I described, I think.
That and there's different ways to do that. So uh yeah, and Josh kind of is pointing something out here. There's augmented reality is I would say that would be like a subspecies of virtual reality. That's fooling your monkey brain. And what most people know is augmented reality that they've had experience with is Pokemon Go,
Yeah.
where the Pokemon look like they're standing in the city park because you've got your camera on and it's overlaying onto it. But uh, the idea of augmenting reality, holographic projection would be a form of augmented reality. I would
Yeah.
argue.
Yeah.
Your when you go to some of the newer attractions in Disney, the faces and stuff and some of the features on the animatronics are actually projection technology. They're not they're not just robots, but the faces are done with projection because it's a more realistic looking experience. So an overlay on top of reality is a form, I would say, a subset of virtual reality.
Now, there's also augmented reality, like there was a game that preceded Pokemon Go. Actually, Pokemon Go was
Pokemon Go is the same tech as the game, and I remember I played the game briefly. There were
Ingress.
others that read it. Ingress,
Yeah,
yeah.
same company, same tech, same background
I,
database of locations and stuff, right?
yeah,
Um,
and
made
what
by
that did,
Niantic, right?
but that wasn't necessarily about catching Pokemon
No,
or the camera piece, but the idea was you played the game in the
right?
real
Yeah,
world, but there was this other dimension that you pretended
yeah.
was like
There was no camera involved. There was no overlaying on top of visual, right? It
yeah,
was you went to a location and it was your phone was called a scanner, right? That's
yeah,
how they immersed you into it.
right,
Um, but you could see things that weren't really there based on your location, and it was kind of cool, right? It felt very. Um,
yeah,
but anyway, that's another AR game, right? So it doesn't necessarily have to overlay on top of visual reality. It just has to make you feel as though
right. But
you know.
your monkey brain could believe that you were scanning energy fields and devices that were cloaked or whatever, and that you were having an impact on reality.
Right.
Because I agree with you today, Nate, that when people think VR, they think the goggles. But a lot of us who are nerds, our original virtual reality is something we still don't have yet, and that's the holodeck, which has always been part of the Star Trek mythology
Yep.
and was not really presentable. There were holodecks in the universe of the old series, but they never really showed them. You really first saw the holodeck in Next Generation
Yep.
because you could do special effect budgets that were reasonable at that point.
Right. Right.
And I think that whenever, I mean, that's always like my expression. When there's a game or a virtual reality experience that is this all-encompassing thing, I'll just it's like being on the holodeck. And the one that's closest for me is No Man's Sky
Yeah.
because it's not like an on the rails thing. It's not like, oh, I'm playing a shooter game but I'm stuck in one place, and it's very clearly a game. Like Beat Saber's not the holodeck. Beat
Have
Saber,
you have you
yeah.
maybe you can't yet. I don't know if you have the hardware for it. Have you tried Half-Life Alex?
Oh yeah, I've played Half-Life
I
Alex.
didn't know if
That's
it
freaking
worked with your
amazing.
controllers. I
Yeah,
didn't
it
know if you had
works.
to
It
have the
works.
index controllers because of
You
the
don't
finger
need
tracking.
you don't need the index. I got stuck on a puzzle and got irritated because I was trying to not look up hints. So I haven't played Alex in a little bit.
Okay,
You,
I
you
played
don't.
like an hour of it once I got the new machine that I'm on because now I have a machine that will run it at a decent frame rate. And that game to me is like I was playing it and I could literally feel my heart rate going up because of the scare factor that was in it. Like the tension factor of
Oh
being
yeah,
in a first person shooter where even though I'm using the teleport thing to move around because I have to, because VR messes with my equilibrium, gives me motion sickness if I don't do
Sure.
teleport movement. So that obviously is not anything like real life, where a smooth movement or natural movement is more like real life, even though you're not physically walking. But your brain can turn that off and make you feel like you're actually standing in the Half-Life universe, and there are zombie mutant creatures everywhere. And it's pretty crazy. And it's close enough to real life that you don't have the same disconnect that you do with No Man's Sky. No Man's Sky is awesome, don't get me wrong, but that disconnect that you were talking about that made you maybe feel like it was more believable because it's so different than real life that you put yourself into, like, I'm now this other thing, this other person, right?
Yeah. And actually, it's kind of funny because, and again, I'm talking about my experiences.
Yeah.
And a VR experience to me, it doesn't have to be hyper realistic. Like my stupid monkey brain, when I use MC Parks, which for our listeners who don't know what that is, MC Parks is a group that have spent 5 years reconstructing various theme parks, mostly the Disney properties, but also Orlando Studios. They've been constructing one-for-one versions of these theme parks using Minecraft, and they have texture packs and everything else, and they have an audio server that's web-based. So you log into the MC Park server, and then you click a link to start up the audio server. So when you go on certain attractions, you're hearing the audio from the attractions.
Pretty crazy.
The music, the sound effects, and even some background noise, because when they captured them, there were other guests. Well, they have a fireworks show every night, Happily Ever After, which I've seen in the real world. And I personally find it a very moving fireworks show. It's fireworks plus holographic projection plus music, and it's got this very cool story-like progression around all sorts of themes. It's a great show, and I'm not embarrassed to say it. I often choke up with it. Well, VR in Minecraft on that park, when I watch that fireworks show, even though everything's in blocks, my brain has the same emotional reactions as if I'm there in real life. And that to me tells me that the virtual experience is something that it's real enough that I'm fooled, especially if I don't think about it too much.
Even though you're standing in a Lego version of the
Even
Disney
though I'm standing in a
parks.
Lego version of Disney parks, the music, because sound is obviously very powerful, right?
Right.
The sound, the music, and my brain because the fireworks show, they have it perfect. Like the dudes who built it, a lot of them are Disney cast members, right? So they know every single rocket that goes off. They've analyzed the recordings of it, and they get it down to a T. And it's proof that you don't need to have photorealistic stuff to fool your brain.
Right.
That a virtual experience is actually, who's to say it's not a real and valid experience?
Yeah. No, I agree with you.
I don't know how much we want to just talk about VR itself tonight.
Yeah, well, this is all very relevant.
Metaverse.
This is all very relevant
this
because
is foundational.
Because the other thing I want to talk about later is defining what the hell a metaverse is versus what we've already got today, right?
Right.
So this all sort of helps rope into that. So on that note, why don't we go ahead and just dive into this whole metaverse concept? Now, the term metaverse, as far as I know and as far as I've been able to research, was basically coined in the novel Snow Crash. It wasn't a pretty picture. I haven't read the novel. I want to now that I've been diving more into what is a metaverse and whatever.
Yeah, I've read Neuromancer, but I'm embarrassed to say I've never read Snow Crash.
I've read Neuromancer. I have not read Snow Crash, but Snow Crash is definitely a thing that I want to either get the audiobook and start listening to it, or I can read it. Huh? Why is that?
We should just delete the podcast at this point because neither of us have read Snow Crash.
Right. Yeah, it's like we've lost all of our cred, all of our nerd cred. Is that it? Anyway, my point is that apparently that book is like this dystopian thing where the metaverse is not a good thing, right? Mm-hmm. So it's really weird that metaverse is the word that Zuckerberg is tying to his venture. But we'll talk about...
Or is it?
Right.
Is it weird?
But we'll talk about Meta and Facebook in just a second. First, I want to kind of talk about what the heck is a metaverse, right? And I want to start with a distinction that Zuck himself made in that presentation. He says it's the next evolution of the web, right? Now, the web, as normal people know it, is just like a place to go view web pages. But as IT people know it, it's a lot deeper than that, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's technologies, there's standards, there's principles that it was founded on, right? And those principles, and I won't go into the depths of the principles. You can go look them up online if you want to. But when the web was created, the ideals that it was basically founded on was that it was decentralized, that it was a thing that was accessible. It didn't discriminate, right? So if you're obviously there's a certain bar to entry that's kind of hard to avoid, right? That bar's gotten lower as years have gone on with cloud providers and, you know, fractions of a cent per hour instances on Amazon. But the idea is that anybody could go stand up a website, get it on the internet. If they learned how, they learned the standards, they learned how to build a website, right? So these were like the principles that were foundational when the web was being created, right? And those have evolved over time. You could argue that a lot of them are already almost irrelevant because the average kid trying to build a website on a machine under their desk in their bedroom, it's a little harder today than it was 40 years ago or 30 years ago, right? You look like you have something to say.
I have a few things to say. First of all, no, I don't think it's harder for a kid in their bedroom to build a website. I think it's difficult to be seen by the entire planet,
Right.
but I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing. When Zuckerberg, here's my opinion, right? I'm not a psychologist, nor have I deeply studied what Zuckerberg said. But my gut is when he is saying that the metaverse is the next version of the web, I don't think he's thinking in terms of open standards
Exactly.
and things like that. I think he's talking about because his version of the web is a place where people spend money.
Yeah.
Advertisers spend money and people are funneled into content that makes them buy things from these advertisers. And even though it might appear that you're free, you're actually not. It's no small secret that people who use Facebook are they themselves the product because it is their data that's driving advertising, um, things like that. And I'm going to admit it. One of the gifts I bought my wife for Christmas this year, uh, I saw a Facebook ad for it,
Yes.
and I'm like, oh, that I think she'd really like that.
So
So
yeah,
I got kind of reeled in. So
that's
I think
finish your statement. I was simply going to say that's the blessing and the curse of targeted advertising, right?
it is.
Targeted advertising means you've given up something on a privacy level, but you've exchanged that for ads that are for products that you might actually care about.
And
Which you could argue is a good thing.
I don't have a problem. When I'm honest with myself, I don't have a problem with that.
Right.
Right. What I do have a problem with is people not realizing that there's a whole world beyond Facebook and Amazon and a couple of other websites that they might use day to day. Right?
Jay Scar's talking
Because
about the scene from Ready Player One where
yeah,
IOI
89%
is
ad
talking about
coverage
89% of ad coverage.
before causing seizures, right?
Yeah.
So I think when Zuckerberg is talking about the metaverse, he is IOI in the equation. He is thinking about a controlled community where um where ultimately he has the power through his company.
Right. Now, the thing I do want to, well, okay, so we've already started going into sort of the next topic, but I did want to just sort of tie up the whole, like, background of Metaverse, right?
Right.
And where I was going with the principles of the web thing. If you're going to call it the next evolution of the web, and if that truly is the next evolution of the web, then personally, I feel like there has to be some adherence to some of those ideals and standards. Now,
I think it depends on what you consider the web. When I started interacting with the web, this was the late 80s, early 90s. People were friggin' horrified whenever there was a sniff of commerce on the web.
right.
Do you remember those days?
I do.
The early 90s, right?
I do.
And very quickly, almost overnight, a lot of that changed. Suddenly, commerce on the web wasn't like a dirty word. So I think, to pull a Bill Clinton, it depends on what the definition of web is. That's
Right.
really that we have to understand when Zuckerberg says the next evolution of the web, what is he talking about when he says the web versus what are you talking about, or what am I talking about?
The
'Cause you
word,
and I are more old school when we're
the
talking
word,
about the web.
the word World Wide Web
hmm
is a term that references the collection of protocols and standards that make up the current web.
Yes, that is what
So
you mean when you say
well, no,
web.
that's what the word World Wide Web means.
That is what you mean. I am arguing that Zuckerberg doesn't mean that.
Well, this is kind of the point I'm trying to make. He says it's the next evolution of the web. He does not call it Web 4.0 or something. He calls it the Metaverse,
Right.
which takes all of the history of the web and throws it away because now it's quote unquote new.
I agree.
But part of my point for today is that it's not new. Meta and Facebook and Zuck, the evil android, are not the only people in this space, though that is what he led us to believe in his
That is
little
what he wants.
dissertation, right? And I've watched a couple of YouTubers. One of them is the virtual reality channel. Fia, her name is. She's one of these VTubers that basically does a YouTube channel of herself in VR, right? This is the way that she does her videos, right? She records herself she uses VRChat as her platform. We'll talk about platforms later. But she basically did like a reaction video, and then she did like a recap video of the announcements from Zuckerberg. And then there's...
I don't know.
Damn it, I'm forgetting that he does a VR channel that's less about being a VTuber and more about just the concept of VR and like the future of VR and what's going on in VR. Thrill Seeker, that's what he calls himself. But they both of these channels did sort of analysis of this announcement, and both of them referred to it as like, you know how tech conference or tech. I'm having trouble with words tonight. How these announcements and how these events, well, usually there'll be some ratio of like vision to some ratio of like tech announcements and things that are being worked on like right now and product releases and whatever.
Okay.
The Facebook / Meta announcement, everybody was expecting them to just announce the next Oculus. Well, what's the next Oculus headset going to be? And there was almost nothing about hardware. It was all this like crazy vision thing about Metaverse, right? And a lot of people, basically, they got the ratio wrong, right? And because of that, a lot of the community, or a lot of the VR community and the VTubing community and the people who are very interested in the future of VR were very let down by that whole announcement, whether they like Facebook and Meta and Zuckerberg or not, or whether they like the concept of a metaverse or not. But anyway, that's kind of a rabbit trail I've already gone down. Facebook / Meta, I should just say Meta at this point because Facebook is just one of the properties of Meta now. But Meta they have this page where they talk about building the metaverse responsibly, and it's linked in the show notes. I can throw it in chat for... Hang on a second here. For anybody who is actually in chat, looks like it's just JScar. No, we got a couple other people on Twitch, so hi people on Twitch. But here it is. And some of the points that they address in that is specifically the stuff that we're worried about. You know, obviously they talk about content standards. They talk about what is, like, how are they going to protect people from, like, hate speech and, you know, all the big hot button points that Facebook is getting beaten up over right now. They also talk some about how to make the metaverse so it's not just owned by Meta. Now, I don't know how much you want to believe that, but it is there. They do have it published, right? I know, see you're shaking your head, and I agree with you. I feel like there is no future where Meta has a stake in building the metaverse, quote unquote, the metaverse, the next generation of the web, where they are not somehow owners or somehow in control of things, so that they can do things like mine data from people and advertise at people and make money off of it, because otherwise why would they be doing it? Zuckerberg's not interested in just cool technologies anymore. He's interested in cool technologies that are the future that'll make him money, right? So anyway, I went all around the
this is
around the barrel on that.
This is all about this is part of my expression. A lot of this is bullshit.
Yeah.
Because this is about trying to create a sterile and safe and whatever. That's no. That's not no.
So
I'm not buying that's the way to approach it.
The other thing right. So one is, and this, I don't want to sound like one of the, because there's definitely a negative connotation with people who talk about freedom of speech and Facebook, right? There's a lot of people that say, oh, the fact checkers are just there to censor, and I'm not one of those people. Okay, Facebook is a closed ecosystem of Facebook's own properties and whatnot, and while they are slowly becoming a speech platform, you could argue they are a speech platform, it's still Facebook's platform, right?
Sure.
However, if you're making a world that is meant to be like online reality, right, and it's quote unquote open, and a metaverse, and not just a Facebook property or a Meta property, you need to have freedom of expression and speech built into it, right? So if like every time I say a bad word, it gets censored, right? That's not reality. You've now like made it this, like you were saying, this like sterile environment that's safe for everybody and nobody's feelings will ever be hurt, and that's not reality, right? So anyway, I didn't really come prepared to talk about censorship online, but it's one of the things that I do feel like, as a parent, there are spaces where I want my children to be able to be protected from that style of stuff until they get older, just because I don't personally feel that children should be exposed to things like that. I know some people feel differently.
But that's your call as their parent.
Right.
Yeah.
And that is my point, right? So, like, if there's an underage version of the metaverse that has guardrails in place that help protect children from things like that, I think I'm okay with that. But once you hit maybe the age of consent, that stuff should either be off by default and you can turn it on if you want to, or it should not be imposed on us, like the current filters and whatnot on Facebook are slowly becoming.
So,
right.
Yeah. No, and this is why, to me, the metaverse should not be Facebook 2.0, which is what I think a lot of people, Facebook morphed into some virtual reality situation.
Right.
The metaverse should be what you and I mean when we say web. It should be about standards. And
right.
When I say standards, I don't say fuck in public. I mean standards like TCP/IP and HTML and HTTPS and stuff like that. And it should be distributed, and it should be millions and millions of diverse nodes that can communicate with each other, but that are not under any central authority or command.
Right. I'm glad we're on the same page there, Marc. Because exactly where this whole conversation was meant to land. Because
I don't think that's what Zuckerberg wants.
It's not. So, and that gets me exactly to the next bullet point, right? So that ideally, I think, is what we need. What we need is an open metaverse. And remember that term, because we're going to talk about it later. I think we need an open.
I've heard that before.
Open metaverse. Yeah, right. It's almost like we work for a company that's all about open. But the open metaverse is a term I'm going to use and a lot of other people are using to describe what Marc and I were just talking about, where it is a standards-based implementation of a virtual reality, or maybe not VR in the strap-on a headset way, but in an online community, online world, right?
So that leads to an interesting question, right? Because you and I know, we're both huge fans of Ready Player One.
Mm-hmm.
And the Oasis, which was always, if I remember correctly, was pretty much always presented as a virtualized experience where you were immersed in it. Were there any situations where you would access the Oasis through like a flat screen device or something?
At the very beginning of the book, when Wade is still living in the trailer and he has to hide his well, he has to basically go off to that other location where
Right.
his little clubhouse where he hangs
his
out.
secret trailer, yeah.
Right. He talks about how he had this hand-me-down laptop that he had like picked out of the trash and repaired. Even then, I think he referred to having gloves and a helmet.
Yeah,
Gloves
so
and a visor.
his visual, right. So is the metaverse, to you, I'm asking Mark to Nate,
Yeah.
is a critical part of the metaverse being a virtual experience where your monkey brain doesn't believe it's in Nazareth, Pennsylvania, but it believes it's somewhere else?
I don't think so.
Okay.
So
And that's a legit
in
answer.
in Ready Player One, you have to remember they're in the future, right? This is a
Not that
future.
far ahead at this point.
Right. It's a future of this world, right? Where I think the intention of the author was to imply that things like VR headsets and gloves were table stakes. That's like having a computer today,
Yeah.
right? I think in today's world, the equivalent would be there needs to be a 3D world that you can hop into in a flat world, right? Where you've got keyboard, mouse, or maybe even a game console, right? Where you just log in and there you go, right? Like that's the
Because
base level
honestly,
of access.
and I realize they're a Facebook product, but the Oculus headsets, they're at about a two or $300 price point, and
Yep.
I've not used one, but I'm told they're pretty good.
Yeah.
So I think it would be okay. To me, the metaverse part of the table stakes is the virtualized experience.
The
But
Oculus,
you and I are allowed to disagree on that
you could argue that the Oculus is not only cheaper than many smartphones on the market. It's also
because
cheaper
it
than
is
just about any computer
because it is.
because it is,
And
right?
forget the fact that Facebook owns it.
Right. Yeah.
It's just I think it's a matter of time where you've got open VR headsets at that price point.
Yeah. And that's kind of the point that Thrill Seeker makes, that one of the channels I talked about earlier.
And I'm kind of wondering, and I apologize because I keep kind of talking on top of you because my brain keeps firing.
Yeah.
I kind of wonder if we weren't still fighting with this pandemic and the supply chain issues and shortages and, the chip shortages and stuff, if we wouldn't have a more accelerated move towards cheaper quality non-Zuckerberg VR devices.
Look, I've moved away from Android, but Google had this. Do you remember Google Cardboard?
Of course.
Yeah.
They abandoned it.
They abandoned it because
Because that's
Google
what they do.
has freaking ADD. They're like a squirrel. But when I bought my first Pixel as a giveaway, as a gimme, as a bonus, I got the Google Daydream VR, which I still have in this closet. I can't use it anymore because no freaking phones support it. But it was Google Cardboard in an actual headset. Right? It was all fabric and padding and whatever. There was nothing fancy to it, except I think there was an NFC chip in it that would tell the phone that, hey, you're in the headset now. And it had a little controller. And super cheap, probably manufactured for like $10 a pop. I think you could buy it for $30, right? And Google Cardboard was like $5 or $10 or something, right? If you wanted that uncomfortable experience of having cardboard strapped to your face. Literally all you did was take your smartphone, pop it into the stupid thing, and you're in a very low-scale VR.
Well, you could do that. Nintendo did something similar with that
Yep.
with the Switch.
Yep.
Which I forget whether Josh actually ended up getting that or not. He might have.
I remember that, where you could build like this thing where you'd put the Switch and the controller, or the controllers into it, and then you could do stuff like, I've got this weird mech suit thing now, right?
Yeah. And you use the Switch as like, you basically use the cardboard turned the Switch into a weird ass VR headset.
Right.
The funny thing is the OLED switches are more expensive than an Oculus. And I think the regular Switches are about the same price point as an Oculus.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we're getting there.
I do.
VR is no longer a multi-$1,000 investment.
Right. And to be honest, even the quote unquote good VR, the good consumer VR, you can get into for about $1,000.
Yeah, the headset itself is
Yeah.
500.
Now you need a computer.
Well, yeah.
Right. You need a
Yeah,
computer with a
true.
decent graphics card, which will run you another $1,000 or $2,000,
That's
depending
where
on
you
the
saw
market
off
and
your
all
arm
that stuff.
nowadays. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. Right.
What
But
the heck is
anyway,
that?
so did you saw off your arm on accident?
No, I had some yellow tape on my arm. I'm like, what the hell
It's
was
just
that
weird. Where do I find
From? It
yellow
was
tape?
weird. I don't know.
So anyway,
Edith, get me a beer.
ah,
Achie! Where's the VR goggles?
what's funny is that I remember what that's from.
You're not as young as you think. Boy, the way Glenn Miller played songs that made the parade. Guys
Anyway.
like us, we had it made.
So ideally, right, this is an open space where it's decentralized and people can spin up their own VR worlds on their own hardware, maybe even if they want to, right? There's no platform, there's no company behind it. It's just like the web is today.
You know what? You know one of my opinions about this already. I would argue that Minecraft
Right.
is already a strong metaverse platform if you decide to use it as such.
Right, and we'll talk about that in a minute too. If we ever get to it. I keep saying a minute. It's probably an hour away at this point,
We're
guys.
at 7:48. This is a multi-parter.
So, well, I mean, I intentionally left the news light tonight, folks. So if you want to hang out and hear the whole metaverse conversation, we may not do the split
The Iron
like we
Sysadmin
normally do.
doesn't do light.
So
Also, I had to finish up my Buffalo Trace from my old bottle because my son-in-law to be got me a new one. So this is like double Buffalo Trace I'm drinking tonight.
I'm doing rye whiskey tonight. I have an
Second
old
Life,
fashioned.
J Scar. You're absolutely right. Second
Yes,
Life. I think
you guys are
Minecraft-
getting ahead of me. You're getting ahead of me. Calm down. Calm down. Okay, so I wanted to make a point to okay, that's ideally what open metaverse could be. What we're being sold, however, are these closed worlds. I think they're going to be closed worlds. And I would argue that Meta's Metaverse, Horizon, they're calling it, Horizon Worlds, is out today. We talked about it on last week's show, or last time's show. Mark, you weren't here, but
Okay.
Horizon Worlds is out and usable Oculus only.
Ooh, what a coincidence.
What a coincidence, right? And I tried digging to find out, is there any announcement that says this will eventually be cross-platform? Zero. I found nothing. Everything says Oculus.
The goggles, they do nothing.
The goggles, they do nothing. They are cheap, and they lock you into a freaking ecosystem that depends on Meta. And I don't want to sound too, conspiracy theorist about this, but we've seen it from Facebook over and over and over again. They don't want you to leave their platform. They want you to be locked in. They want you to be on their platform, buying their stuff.
It's not a conspiracy theory if it's
If it's
true
true,
and based on
exactly.
known behavior.
Exactly. So, at any rate, there's Horizon Worlds, right? And I have a whole list of different things that you could call metaverses today because I did some looking. I actually went memo list, right? It's this infamous thing. Even people outside of Red Hat know it exists. It's this mailing list of where we can email all of Red Hat, essentially. Anyone who hasn't unsubscribed from mail list. Unsubscribe. I asked there because obviously we're an open company. We're a bunch of tech people. I was curious, who is looking into the metaverse? What can you tell me? I did that as part of the research for tonight's show, and I got a whole bunch of things that already exist today that you could call a metaverse, right? And we've talked all this point, and we still haven't really defined what a metaverse is, right? What differentiates metaverse from just Minecraft, right? And so I'm going to give you the names of 3 different online worlds that exist today. They call themselves something like a metaverse. They don't always use the term metaverse, but it's the same concept, right? There's the Sandbox is one of them. And that's not playable today. They just had an alpha that was open to people who paid a ridiculous amount of money. If that gives you any idea what kind of world... If that gives you an idea of what kind of world they're going to build. You had to have a quote-unquote alpha pass, which basically meant you spent thousands of dollars to buy land in the sandbox.
Ain't nobody got time for that.
Then there's Decentraland, which is open today. They have a common thread between the Sandbox and Decentraland, and I'll talk about that in a minute. There's another one called AXS. I think there was another name for it, but I didn't take the time to look it up before the show. I will try to get that and throw it into the show notes so you guys can go look at these three. There are probably more, but these are the three that I found that looked like they were either ready for use or close to ready for use. The one thing that all three of them have in common is not just that they're online worlds, not just that they're 3D spaces that you can log into and basically pretend that you have a second life, pun intended, in this other world, but they have ownership built into them through blockchain, right? So,
the blockchain.
Well, hold on. I know it's a silly buzzword. We all like to joke about it, but
ICANN has blockchains?
Carrying an actual economy into a metaverse is, I think, one of the keys to calling it a metaverse, right? Because, and you can argue whether you like that or not, but I think that when you look for metaverse type products or type worlds, this is kind of the common thread, is that they use a cryptocurrency, right? And they use blockchain to track ownership of NFT assets. You've heard NFTs, I'm sure, because everyone's joking about, oh, I can own digital whatever. I think the future is that artwork today is NFTs in the future, right? So like the Mona Lisa, you could say, like, who cares? It's a piece of art. It's pretty, whatever. People pay a ton of money for stuff like that because it's pretty and whatever. I think NFTs are the future of that. And NFTs are going to move into things like advertising space in the metaverse, land ownership in the metaverse, physical storefronts in the metaverse.
So I'm going to humor you a little bit because
Okay.
I'm trying to assume positive intent. And there are some intrigue. So with the proper use of open standards based around blockchains and NFTs, that could be a glue that binds together
Yes.
different what are we going to call, like, if I stand up a piece of metaverse, what do I call that? Is that an instance? Is that a world?
I don't know.
Is that, so if it's the metaverse, that a universe has
It's a planet.
Has stars, planets, whatever.
Yeah.
So calling an individual instance, so MC Parks could be a world inside of a larger metaverse. Minecraft has the ability to transfer you to a different server that relationship has been set up on. I keep coming back to Minecraft because Minecraft illustrates something to me that's very important about the metaverse. Logging into a virtual reality game. So No Man's Sky is not a metaverse. And I say that because it's a self-contained game. It's a self-contained universe. To play No Man's Sky, you need to own No Man's Sky, and you really can't do anything but be in that lovely holodeck. Minecraft is a generic client, just like a word processor. I bought a client, and on a word processor, I can write a poem. I can write a book report. I can write a performance review. I can write the next novel. Minecraft, you can create pretty much any type of world you want, and anybody else who bought the generic Minecraft client can connect to your world and have the experience that you were trying to share. Do you see where I'm going with the difference there?
Yeah. Yep.
And so to me, the idea of software around the metaverse are clients and servers that, much like web servers, Apache doesn't care if it's serving an e-commerce site, if it's serving furry porn, if it's serving children's videos. It's just doing HTTP and HTTPS and the scripting and stuff. And so to me, the important thing for nerds like us to focus on is building the frameworks and building the clients and the servers that take the place of Apache and Netscape. Ooh, I just called something out that's really old. So what are going to be the next Apache server and Netscape browsers for the metaverse? And so to me, I think, one of the closest things that is in the public mind is something like Minecraft. Now, obviously, some people would laugh about that. Some people would never accept it because it's, the Lego block worlds. But Other people have talked about Second Life. Second Life was the same thing, almost, right?
Well, Second Life depended on their servers. You
It
couldn't host
did.
your own, essentially.
That's
And I
true.
should say, I shouldn't talk about it in the past tense. Second Life is still alive. People still
Oh
play
yeah.
it. It's still out there. There's even a VR client for it. I just hear it's really bad.
But if there are people working on, and I think you've done a little research on this already, if there are people working on clients and servers to build worlds inside of a shared metaverse, that's how you get around the Zuck, right?
Yeah, I think you're right.
That's that and that to me is really important. It would be super easy because you know that the Zuck is going to pour gajillions of dollars into this one metaverse to rule them all. And Aunt Betty is going to be convinced that, oh, if I want to see my nephew at the metaverse and attend his birthday party at Fairy Park World in the metaverse, then I need to use my Oculus 7, and have my Meta account. But it can be better than that. It really can be. It should be something based on open standards, open clients, open servers that people can that kid, that ridiculously creative kid can he or she can just build an amazing experience for people to
And
and
that
it doesn't have to like go through Zuckerberg and whatever.
that's
Ugh.
that's the point, right? There shouldn't be a gatekeeper to the metaverse. There should not be someone who is controlling the whole thing and pulling the string. Now, you could argue your Minecraft example is very good. It gets almost there. The piece that it's missing is that it still requires the purchase of the Minecraft client from Microsoft, which is a relatively small purchase, right? It's
You
like
know,
20
but
bucks or something.
we're in a world where Microsoft's no longer the biggest asshole on the planet,
It's scary, right?
right? I'd rather give money to Microsoft than to Facebook 100 times over.
Right, right. And I
But
think
to,
there's always
but
going
to
to be
your
some cost involved in entering the metaverse, right? Whether that's equipment like a VR headset and a computer,
well,
or
even if
whether
you
it's a
use
purchase of
yeah,
software, right?
even if you use free software, you still need hardware to run it on. I mean, that's always been the case.
Yeah, yeah, it really is. It really is. So we've gone way down. We're only halfway through my thing, but my my outline here. But I think we're getting to the point, right? So I wanted to talk a little bit about things that exist today that are very similar
Are
to
you
a metaverse.
are you keeping me on track, or am I dragging you places where you didn't want to go?
No, it's okay. This is a great discussion, and I hope the
Okay.
listeners agree. But there are several things today that you could argue are very similar to a metaverse. They don't have some of the pieces that we've talked about. They don't have blockchain. They don't have ownership, right? They don't have the ability to own stuff, at least in a more traditional financial sense. And to be honest, I'm not sure that I want that in the metaverse because that's a barrier, right? So the Sandbox, for example, and Decentraland, it's a very high price point to get in because you need to own a cryptocurrency, and cryptocurrencies are not an inexpensive thing to get into right now because you can't just go mine coin like you used to. And buying it because it's such a hot commodity, a single Bitcoin is like 5 figures, isn't it?
It's gotten crazy.
It's like 54 grand or something, I thought. I mean, maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. I
Mary
haven't
Kay
followed
for
it that
bros.
closely. But for a point, it was really high for a point. Even Ethereum, which is what the Sandbox, I think it was, is based on, it's like over $1,000 for a single coin. And to buy land is $1,000 or two or more. To buy like simple things in these worlds is very expensive right now.
And
And I
if
don't
pe-
like that. The
yeah,
financial
but
system of the real world kind of sucks. I don't want to see it carried over into a virtual world for bits.
if people want to build those worlds and people want to pay, that's okay. But there should always be the ability for someone to just give it away for free.
Right. And I think that isn't just like if I have a car and I want to give it to you, it's a matter of signing it over to you.
I
Right.
think where we're in right now is there's people who are being opportunistic.
Yes. You're
So
probably right. And that's why the
let
prices look so high at the moment.
let me pull up a chair and tell you a story, right? I've talked about my Neverwinter Nights world, right?
Yeah.
We talked about that in the past, where I made Nordock. It was a persistent world, which was something that was really exciting. The idea that in 1999 you could basically have your very own, almost an MMO, that you host it either on a machine in your house or
That's
in
another
my
great example of a metaverse, by the way.
yeah, like, right.
By your definition, the
It almost
Minecraft,
is.
right? Same idea. Anyway, go
It
ahead.
almost is, but there were I had to make a choice. Um, did I want to try and monetize my efforts, or did I want to share them with as few restrictions as possible? And I thought about it quite a bit, and my decision was not only am I going to not ever charge people to play in Nordock, but I ended up giving a version of the world away for free
Right.
under an open source license where I said, you are welcome to stand this up yourself. You're welcome to modify it. You're welcome to do whatever you want. Just make sure that somewhere you give me credit for the original world. I basically GPL'd it.
Right.
And so many persistent worlds, people put a lot of effort into them. They died, never to be seen again. You can still play on Nordock today in different flavors if you fire up old school Neverwinter Nights.
Because you gave it away, and because
Have I
there's
ever made
people
yeah,
that are
yeah.
passionate about seeing that, whether it's for nostalgia or just because they
Now,
like the principles, right?
now
That want to see that up and running.
might I have been able to monetize it in some way to make my life a little more comfortable, or even to have made a chunk of money that would have been significant? I don't know. But even if I knew I could have done that, this was when I was like really new to Linux and new to open source, and it resonated with me. And it felt like the right thing to do to share it.
Right.
And I think what we're seeing with some of and God bless these metaverse folk who are charging, it's their right to do it.
Mm-hmm.
I'd love free enterprise, America. That's part of our system. You're allowed to do that. But I think what you're seeing is you're seeing some folk who are like, "Ooh, I'm in sort of on the ground floor here." That's when you can really maybe strike it rich. So that's what I'm choosing to do.
Right.
And it's not resonating with you because I think, like me, you're more of a person who is like, things should be shared even if you don't make bank on them.
It comes down to the same principles, I think, that were laid down when the web was founded. That there should not be a bar to entry. If I have a cheap piece of crap computer, I should be able to implement a web server and host simple HTML pages and run a website. Maybe it's a pain in the ass. Maybe it gets compromised over and over again because there's assholes out there on the internet. But that's exactly how I got started in IT. It's exactly how I became passionate about this kind of stuff, right? It's how I built a career. I was curious, and the stuff was attainable, right? If this truly is the next iteration of the web, I don't want a kid with the same passions that I had to not be able to get into it because they need Ethereum, which is too expensive for them,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yep.
Because they can't establish a space in the metaverse because they don't have money or because it's just too much money, right?
So what they won't be able to do is establish a space in that particular world of the metaverse.
Right.
Like, I'm a big believer in, like, I own Disney Vacation Club, and I'm not saying that to flex. I got to the point in my life where I have enough discretionary income that I can do things like buy Disney Vacation Club and use Genie Plus and buy Lightning Lane passes so that me and my son-in-law can be guaranteed entry to the Rise of the Resistance. My counterpart, who would have gone 20 years ago, 35-year-old Marc, couldn't have done that.
Right.
I would have had to do Disney on a budget. And I might be annoyed that I have to wait in this big line. So there are barriers for certain experiences in life. I agree with you that the metaverse itself should consist of standards and clients and servers that don't require heavy investments.
Right.
When people build their worlds, they can absolutely put up a gate and charge admission. But
oh yeah, right. The same way that someone can buy
the,
land and make it private property. The same way someone can buy land and build Disney on it, right? But for every Disney, there's thousands of acres of public land that people can go out and hike or bike or off-road or whatever.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? That's my point, right? There should not be a bar to entry for everything, right? And maybe that's not the way these things are going to turn out. Maybe it'll just be that the poor kid in the metaverse doesn't own property, but they can still experience it, right? But the in this comparison, property is kind of like a website, right? And in a world 30 years ago, when I was tinkering around with setting up a website, it was, I've already got a computer. I can stand up a web server on it, and I can put some simple HTML on there. And sure, that's not a great way to build a web server, but it was possible.
So, all right. I guess. So some of these starting metaverses you've already found.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so there's barriers to entry. So those are obviously not going to be acceptable for our young poor nerd. So what do we see? Are there efforts happening now to make more of an open, accessible to all metaverse platform?
Funny you should mention that. There's a couple things. First of all,
I read the show notes.
Yeah, I wanted to talk about things that exist today that are kind of metaverse adjacent. Like, I don't know if you'd call them a metaverse, and they certainly don't fit the standard that we just sort of loosely defined in our conversation tonight.
But they have attributes that would put them adjacent.
So Second Life is one, and that's been around for 15 years or so. I don't know when it was founded, but I remember tinkering around in Second Life before my kids were born, right? And my oldest is 11, so...
This one goes to 11.
Right, this one goes to 11. That one goes to 11. The other one only goes to 7. But anyway, Second Life is very similar in that, you know, you can't stand up your own server to run your little pod on, but you can certainly own land there. You can build on that land. You can script on that land. You can make, like, people make video games in Second Life as a platform, right? That's pretty cool, right? It's not VR. There's no blockchain. There's no whatever. There is a currency in Second Life that can be translated to real-world dollars, which I thought was kind of groundbreaking and pretty cool at the time. But anyway, so that exists. It's still out there today. I don't know if it's going to live on forever, but it is still a thing, you know, that is interesting if you want to go poke around at it. VRChat. I know you have some opinions about VRChat, but bear with me for a sec. VRChat. VRChat, and I was just talking to the mentor in our Discord. Earlier today, because he's got himself an Oculus that he got as a gift, right? So to talk about the low bar of entry of the price of Oculus, he got one as a gift from the company he works for, which is pretty awesome. But anyway, VRChat is, at face value, it's like IRC from the 90s, where you walk into a chat room and there's just all kinds of people talking about all kinds of things. There's no filtering. There's no...
I think VRChat is absolutely, if it's not its own metaverse, it's definitely metaverse adjacent.
Right.
I don't have a problem with it with the text and stuff. I just think people have created some content that I find personally horrifying.
You've already brought up furry porn. You've already brought up furry porn. The number of people that I have run across in VRChat that are furries is like crazy. I guess it's a thing now.
And dude, that is completely cool. If that's your thing,
right?
God bless you.
It's not my thing.
Yeah,
but it's
Jesus
very
is like, I didn't die for that sin.
It's very much there.
Yeah. but from a tech standpoint,
So that's what I was getting at.
It's pretty killer.
The neat
Yeah,
thing
and
about
again,
VR
remember,
chat.
I'm the guy who a half hour ago railed against content being restricted and sanitized.
Right. So
yeah.
I wouldn't recommend that you let your kids wander around in VR chat. But
Well, my youngest is 19 now, so.
well, okay, your kids. I
But
meant more of a generalized kids, as like kids maybe below 13 or below 18.
I mean, I might not be old enough for VR chat. I don't know.
You may not be. It is an interesting experience though, because you can go to a nightclub in VR chat. You can I literally played 18 holes of mini golf in VR chat the other night. I told you about this.
I have visited some places in VR chat that are actually pretty cool.
It's pretty amazing. And my point is,
I should check it out and see how things have progressed.
Things like your avatar and what you look like in VR chat is not only customizable, but you can get, if you're familiar with Unity, you've probably seen it because it's a game development platform. If you can develop things in Unity, they can become VR worlds and avatars in VR chat, right? So you can design your own avatar in a free tool called Unity, right? 3D modeling stuff, right? In fact, I think you can make them in Blender and bring them into Unity and then put them on VR chat. So you can make your own avatar, so you can literally look however you want, right? And then you can make worlds in VR chat. Again, in Unity, with scripting and everything, right? So it's a really, I don't want to call it an open platform because it's not open in the open standard that we're accustomed to, like open source. But it is open in a way that you can design your own world. You can design what you want to experience within VR chat. It's actually a really intriguing platform. It is also free, not free as in beer. Well, free as in beer. It's not free as in freedom. Because it is a closed, as far as I know, closed source application that is run by a company that you can purchase better tiers of access to and whatever. Tiers. It's that kind of tiers. Anyway, it's neat. It's worth looking into if you're curious about that kind of thing. The comparison I made to 90s IRC is simply that it's like an evolution of that same concept where you've got all these little rooms based on interests and whatever, except now they're virtual worlds. Right? And all of the caveats that come along with that. You're meeting with people that are unfiltered. They may be clothed or not. They may be furries or not. And what they say is not filtered in any way. It's just like walking into a bar with a bunch of other adults, right? So it's not the sort of thing that you want minors exposed to. But anyway, so VR chat. Roblox, believe it or not. You may not be familiar with Roblox because your kids are older.
Roblox. My son Josh spent a fair amount of time there.
Okay. So Roblox is another neat example. It's not VR, but it is accessible from like phones and even a client on your PC. People can make worlds. They can make games within Roblox. My kids spend a ton of time in Roblox. It's got its own currency that you just simply like purchase currency and then use. I don't think it's translatable back to real world currency. Like you can't sell Robux to get money back, I don't think. But that's another example of a thing that's very similar to VR chat. In fact, my kids asked because they wanted to go play Beat Saber one night, and they're like, "What's VR chat?" I'm like, "Well, one, it's not a place for you to play around in, and two, it's like Roblox for adults." And they instantly got it. They instantly understood what I meant when I said that. Minecraft, like you talked about, that's another case. And you may argue that that's even closer to what we might envision as an open metaverse. I'm curious if anybody has any other examples that they think falls into this. So if you want to reach out and let us know if there's some other cool world or thing online that you've seen that seems like it would be in line with the sort of things that we've just talked about, let us know. I'm just kind of curious.
Let us know. Let us know.
But
Drop a note in the chat.
Right. The last point I wanted to make. And you know us, that doesn't mean we're at the end of talking about this. It may be, it may not be.
Yeah.
The last point I wanted to make is that there is a open metaverse foundation that exists today. There's a link for it in the show notes. It's not as active as maybe we might want it to be, but I think their goal, and I haven't looked deeply into them, but I think that their goal is to basically define the standards that we talked about at the beginning, right? Mm-hmm. So you circle all the way back to the beginning. You go rewind an hour and a half or whatever it's been since we started talking. Hour and 10 minutes.
Hour and 15.
So when I talked about the standards and the ideals that the web was based on, these folks are trying to re-implement that in a metaverse, right? So I think we should all have an interest in that. I think we should all check that out. If they don't go anywhere with it, I think that it is still an ideal that we should probably try to bring into existence, right? We need an open metaverse that is built on the same standards that the original web was built on, which is that it's accessible, that that the bar to entry is low, that it's decentralized, that people that want to run their own world can do so without a high bar, without like a crazy high bar to entry, right? I think that's what the metaverse needs to be. I also suggest, and I'm not the first one to say this, so this isn't like something I'm coming up with. I suggest that we don't call it a metaverse, because that's what Zuckerberg is banking on. He renamed his freaking company to try to align with this thing that he's trying to stake a claim in. I think we all have a vested interest in making sure he does not succeed. Now, I'm not saying we need to go break Facebook or hack into Zuckerberg's bank account and make sure he can't do this stuff. I'm simply suggesting that this is our future we're talking about. If this truly is the next iteration of the web, then we need to make sure that it's not owned by a company like Facebook. In the same way that we need to make sure the web is not owned by a company like, I don't know, Amazon or some cloud provider or something. These are ideals that I think are foundational to making this a truly open online community for the future.
So this is not great because www.openmetaverse.org does not resolve in DNS when I click it.
Well, it should. Well, I mean, I'm not saying it should technically. I'm saying that somebody
the
should purchase
cannot
that.
Be reached.
No, the thing
DNS
that's in the
address could not be found.
The thing that's in the show notes is literally a GitHub address.
Yeah, no, I went to the GitHub address and I clicked on the URL for the open.
Oh, okay. So it's a URL they sent you to and it doesn't work. That's awesome.
Yeah, it looks like it looks like now it could just be my connection, but
that's fun. Yeah, I didn't know. I thought that was
See
working.
if that link works for you. Look, the GitHub link works.
Yeah, the GitHub link. Yeah, openmetaverse.org. You're right. This site can't be reached. DNS address could not be found.
So the Zuck is trying to take out his enemies already.
The Zuck is trying to take out his enemies already.
Don't let the Zuck win.
Don't let the Zuck win. Anyway, my point is that if Open Metaverse doesn't succeed, someone needs to. There needs to be an Open Metaverse standard. If they don't make it happen,
Are you going to be the Richard Stallman of the Open Metaverse?
No. But I do think that, so using your example of Minecraft, if someone were to take something like Minecraft and make it a more, what's the word I'm looking for? A more realistic experience, I think that could absolutely be the Open Metaverse that we talk about. That same concept, maybe not based on Java, because Java sucks.
No, definitely not based on Java.
But Minecraft runs on like anything. Think about that. Minecraft runs like you can have a tablet that runs Minecraft. You can have like your computer runs Minecraft. There's a VR port of Minecraft. You can probably get Minecraft on like a freaking watch if you really wanted to. I don't know. Because and that's because it's based on Java. But the point is, it's accessible. Just about anybody can use Minecraft, right? If we take that principle and the decentralized nature of Minecraft and the ability to link to other servers that Minecraft has, I haven't tried that myself, but I trust you when you say that it exists. Like that's a great model for a metaverse. And to be honest, I don't really want a real world economy. I don't want that to translate over. Now, having that may make it more attractive to business. It might help it succeed better, might actually help fund things if it can be designed in a way that it's not a bar to entry, but it is a thing that, companies can spend money on in the same way that the real world uses land ownership and advertising, bulletin boards and whatever, right? I don't know. I'm not saying I have all the answers. I'm just saying that, like, this conversation has made me think that's probably a really good way to go. And I feel like there may be people listening to this
Thinking is
show
hard.
that are capable of making that kind of thing happen. Are there developers out there? I don't know. Maybe we should lobby with Red Hat to make an open metaverse. I don't think we're that interested in an open metaverse.
I don't think it's part of our core business.
You're
but
probably right.
there are definitely centers of practice, which is an internal Red Hat thing. There's one around gaming.
There is.
Communities of practice. Sorry.
There is.
So, if we want to look into after the break, not the show break, the holiday break, an open metaverse community of practice,
That'd be pretty
that might
awesome.
we might be able to kick something off.
That'd be pretty awesome. So, folks, I think that's all I had to say about the metaverse and VR. We're an hour and a half in. I'm glad I kept the news section tight.
I think it's a really, really, really important topic.
It is.
And I think that there's going to be way too many people who don't realize how much of a shift it might be and how much people mentally are already ceding the victory.
Yeah.
CEDING to Zuckerberg.
I had a conversation.
And to hell with that guy. To hell with that guy.
I had a conversation with a friend.
He doesn't deserve it.
And this friend is not in the tech space. He's actually a Jeeper. He also happens to be interested in cryptocurrencies, which is why I had this conversation with him.
Mary Kay for bros.
I asked him if he had heard about the concept of a metaverse. And the first thing he said was that he really wants to get an Oculus so that he can be in the metaverse.
Oh, he's poisoned.
He's already poisoned. And I said, well, wait, there's other options. There's better options. And he says, yeah, but Zuckerberg's already won. Meta. I'm like, no, don't spread that. Like, that's not the way it should be seen. But he's a guy outside of the tech space. There's already people that are not you and I, people that are outside of tech, people that are looking at people that are just like average Facebook users and whatever, that have already basically decided that Oculus and Meta are the metaverse. That scares me.
It's an uphill battle for sure, but it's a battle worth having.
I think that if the battle's not already lost, now is when to have it. So, yeah. Anyone listening that's passionate about basically the future of online commerce, which is what this could turn into, should be very interested in what happens in the next year or so, I think, surrounding the metaverse. Maybe a year is a condensed timescale, because even Mark Zuckerberg was talking about possibly decades, right? But I think that now is the time to fight that fight. And again, I'm not saying anybody should go out and try to take down Meta, at least not in illegal ways. I'll be clear about that. I'm talking about defining what this is and
viable alternatives.
Right, being passionate about viable alternatives and open standards, I think is now. This is basically the fight that had to be fought 30 years ago with open source software.
And who won, by the way?
I think eventually open source software won, but it was not an easy battle.
No, but open source eventually won.
Yeah. So it'd be nice if we learn from the past and make the future open to begin with, but I don't think that's the way it's going to happen. I think what we're going to end up with is things like the Sandbox and Decentraland and Horizon, and they're all going to be these separate little sandboxes. It's ironic that one of them is called literally the Sandbox. They're going to be these separate little worlds, gated communities that don't talk to each other, and you're going to have to pick one, and the one you pick is the one you're going to be invested in, and then you can't talk to the people in the other ones because they're isolated and walled off. And that's not what we need. What we need is an open world that anybody can get access to on any device, whether it's through a flat client or a full-on VR headset or a freaking haptic suit and one of those omnidirectional treadmill things that you can get for VR. Anyway, I'm starting to rant now, but I think you guys get the point. I think that now is the time to make sure that the metaverse does not turn into something owned by a company that wants to make a ton of money off of it, instead of owned by the people, which is where I think it should be. How's your bourbon looking? Are you out of it yet? It's empty.
It's empty.
My old fashioned's almost empty too. I'm down to the cherry.
My liver is now processing it, and I really don't want to crack open the new Buffalo Trace. So,
right.
But I am comfortably numb right now, as our friends in Pink Floyd would say.
Indeed. So,
well,
folks.
I also got up extra early today for reasons we'll talk about in a bit.
Oh, right. We'll talk about that in a moment. So I think that's all we have to say about metaverses and open metaverses and whatever. If anybody's passionate about this stuff, reach out to us in any of the ways that you reach out to us on social media or join our Discord.
Discord!
And we can chat. I really think there might be something to the idea of getting a community of folks within Red Hat that are talking about this. And that's...
Because if we can infest IBM...
Yeah.
There's our Goliath.
Yeah. So, at any rate, folks, we're going to go to a break. Hopefully the scene here in Streamlabs for the break works properly on this new machine. Maybe there won't be music. I think there will be, though.
I don't know.
So, if there's no music, I'm sorry. I'll fix it next time. Anyway, folks, we will be back shortly with the chat and whatnot. I hope you guys have enjoyed this conversation, and please reach out if you have any interest in helping found a proper open metaverse. Not that I say that I'm going to start one, but if we could, that'd be pretty awesome, I think. So, anyway, yeah. Let me hit this button, and folks, we will be back in, well, however long it takes us to come back. Where's the button? Where's the thing? Here's the thing. All right. Back in a few, folks. Are you a fan of the Iron Sysadmin podcast? If you are, don't forget you can support the show via Patreon at patreon.com/IronSysadmin. Or you can buy merchandise at teespring.com/stores/IronSysadmin. And thank you. All right, folks, that was a much shorter break than I'm sure you're accustomed to recently, but, well, to be honest, neither of us had to leave for anything, so we're back already. Here we are.
What can you do, Perry the Platypus?
I've already had enough alcohol, so now it's time for some water.
Yeesh. Oh, I should have gotten some water, but oh well.
Yeah, I asked you twice. I didn't
know,
specifically
but I don't
mention
feel
water, but
I didn't really feel like standing up,
I don't blame you.
so I'll be
I don't
fine.
blame you. That's why I like the stand-up desk. Helps me think, helps the drunkenness of the old-fashioned, not setting it fast.
My better camera is on the part of the desk that doesn't go up and down, like the wheels, like the people on the bus go up and down.
Oh, so your other half of the desk is convertible? That's pretty cool. I didn't know
Well,
that.
no, I bought this thing that sits on the desk that my laptop is on that goes up and down.
Oh, that's cool.
It's not, the desk does not inherently have a standing capability. I bought an aftermarket thing that sits on it. That's
cool. Yeah, mine. When I set up this as my office, this room as my office, I bought a desk that was. It's got it's got 4 programmable positions. I don't know why I would need 4, but I can just hit a button.
That's great. Mine's all manual.
It goes down to seated. You can see me.
These days.
Yeah, I know it's cool, right? It's gonna go back up. I probably talked about it on the show when I bought it. You might not have been. Here. I don't know.
No, you've spent all your time talking about that damn light. So
it's set up for Christmas.
Yay! And that creepy doll.
And the doll. Oh man, I put the doll. I'm so frustrated by that doll. I got it all the parts done, sanded down, primed, smooth and perfect. I painted them with a nice skin tone that I had mixed from from acrylic paints that my wife has. I painted it all down. I bought an airbrush to do it. I painted it real nice. Put a top coat of a clear acrylic on top of it, which is like basically to protect the paint so it doesn't chip off. Went to assemble it, paint chipped off.
Yeah, doll.
So at this point, because like I could just give up and put it together, which I may still do with the pieces that I have. But just now I'm learning, and this seems like something you'd think I would have looked into at the beginning of the whole project. They make skin-colored PLA. I could have just bought a reel of that and printed it in skin color and not had to paint it.
That would have been maybe a better idea.
You might think.
Yeah.
So after Christmas, I'm probably going to buy a spool of skin-colored PLA and basically start from scratch.
Now, when you say skin-colored, do the skin-colored PLA come in different shades?
I haven't looked into the different tones that might be available, but the one I found was very much a white dude.
Pasty white guy?
Pasty white skin color. I'm sure there's others. I haven't looked into it that
fucking racist
extensively because, well, I mean, to be quite honest, the color that the doll's going to be is probably pasty white, just because my daughter is pasty white. She wants a pasty white doll.
Well, now I've got to Google skin-colored PLA and see if there's different skin tones.
There probably are.
Well,
I'm sure there are.
We're going to find out if the PLA industry is just a bunch of friggin' racists.
Could be. Remember, I'm sure you remember Kodak, the camera company? They used to make film.
I remember Kodak.
They make PLA.
Oh, okay.
I didn't know that. I don't know if it's quality PLA or not. Maybe that's the world they moved into after the film industry died.
Alibaba, I thought they were like Amazon for Asia.
Alibaba? I don't know. No, you might be thinking of AliExpress.
No, I'm thinking Alibaba.
Are they the same? Are they
for
also?
Reasons I can't really go into right meow.
Okay.
Because I'd be violating confidence.
Okay.
The only skin color I see is pasty white people.
That's terrible. Now I feel like I've made an awkward topic. Anyway, we're going to go into the announcements. How's that sound? So our quick Patreon update. No new patrons since our last show, but we did. Mark, you probably aren't aware of this. We picked up a new patron as of our last show.
Fantastic.
Zed Thor. He actually reached out to me. I don't know if it's a he. They reached out to me to specifically tell me how to pronounce that, because it's just Z, the letter Z, as us uncultured Americans pronounce it, Z.
Oh, so they're Canadian most likely.
They're either Canadian or European. Don't Europeans pronounce it the same way? Zed?
Canadians do, but maybe 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 Europe. Yeah, I was about to say other Europeans, like Canada's
Again,
European.
not
And you're the racist, right?
Anyway, Zed Thor, fferauu. There's a bunch of consonants in there and vowels that it makes it hard to pronounce. Name pending.
Europeans call these.
Name pending 197. Jeremy, Arinomi, Andrew, Tatro, Bruce, Robert, Matt, David, Solemn with a bunch of numbers, S0L3MN, Trooper Ish, Linux 666, gimpyb, Marc with a K, The Mentor, John the Nice Guy, Marc with a C, Julius, Andy, J, Charles, and 22532. Your good old buddy.
2. So it looks like most of the English-speaking world pronounces Z as Z.
It's just not us uncultured Americans.
As usual, we in America are stubborn and unique, special snowflakes.
I wonder why that is.
Z is apparently the original pronunciation, and I think it has to do with when we broke away from the British Empire, we wanted to do our own thing. That's kind of the sense I was getting from my very fast Google search.
Well, I mean, you searched it in the amount of time it took me to read through that list of, 20 or so patrons. So, first of all, I want to say thank you to that 20 or so patrons. And second of all, I want to say that was a very quick Google search. So, if there's any linguists out there, or Marc, if you really want to do research as to why Americans say Z instead of Z, that might be interesting information for a future show.
Don't care enough.
So anyway, thank you to all of the patrons. You support our show, and that is great. A thing I did not mention in the Metaverse conversation, and I probably wanted to, was that I'm thinking about doing a future show from a virtual space, whether you want to call it a Metaverse or not.
Just don't dress like a furry, please.
I'm not going to dress like a furry. That'd be weird. But anyway, if I can't figure out how to design the space the way I want it to, I may actually just commission someone to do so, and I may use Patreon funds to do so. So you guys may fund this cool little project. I don't know. We'll see. Depends how good I can get with Unity in a short amount of time. So, at any rate, cool stuff. If you want to support the show, you can do so on Patreon, patreon.com/IronSysadmin, or you can buy merch on Teespring, teespring.com/store/IronSysadmin.
So, dude, that meme I made from Darmok, I shared it on the Tamarin Language Study Facebook group.
Yeah.
It's got like 108 likes and LOLs on it.
That's awesome.
It's like a major hit. So
Darmok.
It's Darmok, right?
Darmok and Jalad, when the walls fell.
And for those of you who can't see the screen, the top text says angry woman, her finger pointing. And then the bottom text says white cat when the mouth opened. I'm just ridiculously proud of that.
If anybody has no idea what we're talking about, go look up the Star Trek The Next Generation episode titled Darmok, and then you'll get it. It's a species that speaks in nothing but metaphors.
Which, with the way that memes have exploded,
yeah,
people are essentially a lot of internet speak is like in just a steady stream of memes, which is essentially that episode.
Right. If you think about it, right, someone makes a statement on social media, and then people respond with memes that convey whatever sentiment that they want to convey, right? So the thread that Marc is talking about was a thread that he and I were both involved in on Facebook, where somebody suggested that the world is turning it. Yeah, right. Well, no, it is still Facebook. It's not Meta. Meta's the company that owns Facebook. Facebook is still the application. Anyway, they were suggesting that the world is turning into that episode from Star Trek The Next Generation where everybody talked in metaphors, except that it's going to be memes.
And, nerds should not be strangers to this, because before memes, we talked in a lot of science fiction and fantasy quotes.
Yep.
Cultural references. So memes are merely the next evolution of that.
Song lyrics, sci-fi stuff. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Memes are just a visual representation. I shall taunt you a second time. It's terrible and funny and great.
Terribly funny.
I don't know if I should talk about this. So I ran across a knowledge base article today.
What are we on the agenda, by the way?
What are we on? I don't even know.
Okay, who gives a shit? I think we've stumbled.
We're into
reviews,
chat,
right?
We're into chat now. I shared this amongst some coworkers today, but I ran across a knowledge base article today.
I think you can talk about it. I think the issue is that if a customer read it live in the heat of the moment, they might be upset. But I think it's friggin' hilarious.
As Red Hat employees, we can see private comments that are added to knowledge base articles, and what these are usually used for are things like links to internal documentation that customers don't have access to, or comments that might be more technical than we want to release on, the public.
On the public internet for people who don't know what they're doing to try and
right. So
like even worse.
Like to go deeper, look here, that kind of thing, right? Well, this one, and it was about removing a package that would have a dependency that would remove Python, which would then remove a bunch of other important things, right? Because Python is kind of integral to the way a RHEL system works, because it's like the core of our freaking package manager is based on Python.
We use Python for a lot of stuff at Red Hat.
And the internal comment was basically nothing useful at all. It simply said something like, Red Hat loves Python, and removing it might anger its older brother Monty.
Who will then stomp you with his foot.
Who will then stomp you with his giant foot.
It was spectacular.
That's hilarious. I'm like, this is why I love working here.
Yeah. Amazing.
So anyway, we've moved into the section of the show where we just banter about things that are fun that are going on in our lives. So, Marc, you did something today. Go ahead and talk about the thing you did today.
The thing I did today. Hang on a second. I got a visual aid.
The thing he did today involves standing in line at a GameStop, if that gives you any hint as to what he did today.
PS5, baby. I am PS5'd now.
So you're now one of those people that has stood in line outside of an electronics store for a hot electronics item?
I am. I've done like midnight launches and other events at GameStop before to get collector's editions. This is the first time I've personally done an event for a console. And so what happened is my son and wife were at GameStop. I think it was on Tuesday, because my son loves GameStop. I mean, he's a 19-year-old nerd, so he loves playing video games. He loves buying. He actually really likes collecting like old games, like stuff on the older DSs and Game Boys and stuff like that. So they were in GameStop, and there was a flyer taped to the counter about a PS5 drop event today that was happening today, and it was a bundle that was just shy of $800. So the system itself, a charging base for controllers, another controller, 3 games, including the new Spider-Man game, and a $50 GameStop card. And of course, my wife is like, couldn't they have just taken $50 off the price? Shush you. So,
yeah, but a $50 GameStop card means that you're going to come back to GameStop and spend more than $50.
Of course.
That's why it was a card instead of $50 off the price.
So the word on the street.
But I'm not cynical.
Yeah, you're not cynical at all. The word on the street was that they were expecting to have about. Geez, now my glasses are schmutzed. Is it my glasses or my eye?
Is your eye schmutzed?
I might need some drops or something in it. Anyway, the word on the street was they were going to have about 60 units. Units is like a fancy term for,
units.
For,
packages to sell. Yes.
Packages, right? And so I was trying to do the math in my head because the area I live in has it's not like a low population area. I mean, it's not New York City, but it's also not bumfuck USA, right? So I was trying to figure out at what point do I need to show up on Thursday to have a reasonable chance of getting a PS5. Now, I think I had a couple of things in my favor. May the odds be ever in your favor. I wasn't seeing this massively advertised anywhere, right?
Mm-hmm.
In fact, I got an email about it either later Tuesday night or on Wednesday during the day from GameStop because I'm a GameStop Pro member. But I don't know if everybody on GameStop's mailing list got that. So, but there were a couple of things in my favor, right? It was for GameStop Pro people only, which, by the way, is trivial to join and pretty cheap. But for some people, that might be a minor barrier. The bundle itself is fairly expensive. It's $800,
Yeah.
right? We're not talking about a naked PS5 for $500 or 400 something if it's the digital only unit. This was the disc based unit, which is the more expensive one. But better because it's got a Blu-ray player and the disc so you can put in your PS4 games that you own on disc. Um this Thursday's not like a day off for most people.
Right.
Like I actually technically worked, so I was working from my phone for the
Christmas
morning.
Adam.
Christmas Adam, right? Today's Christmas Adam. But like Nazareth schools wasn't closed, you know,
Right.
and so like I had a bunch of things. So this wasn't like Black Friday. It wasn't the base unit. Um, and it seemed to not be incredibly advertised. But I was still trying to math out, well, when should I get over there? So after watching TV last night, after 9 o'clock, I drove over there to see if there were nerds camping out already.
Right.
There were not.
That's good. Good sign.
So I'm like, all right, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to set an earlier than usual alarm. I'll take a shower, walk the dogs, and then I'll drive over to GameStop. And if there's not a huge number of people, I'll swing by McDonald's to get something to eat and some coffee. And then I'll go. I had like my camping chair with me, my backpack with my Switch. And I'll wait for the store to open. Figured I'd try and check it out around 7. So I get there around 7, and there's some camping chairs set up already, and there's like one or two people out like in line. It looks like it's about a total of 10. So I'm like, all right, because the McDonald's is right in the same parking lot. So I went and grabbed the food. So I ended up being number 12. I ended up being there around 7. By the time the store opened at 10, they had given out, I think, up to number 42. So I could have arrived there at 10
Yeah.
and gotten a PS4.
Right.
I was number 12. They started letting people in two at a time at 10. I walked out of there at 10:30. So I would have been there quite longer had I been later. And did I mention it was actually technically a work day today?
Right.
I had my phone with me, but that doesn't have all my tools on it, and my laptop with me in case I needed to jump onto that.
To do real work, yeah. Not just check emails.
So it was definitely a pretty cool experience, though. My wife is like, when my wife was talking about it, she's like, "Oh, we could just swing over around noon and get one." I'm like, "No, you're not gonna. There's not gonna be any left at noon."
Yeah, at noon there
What are you,
probably wouldn't
insane?
be, I would say. If it's even marginally advertised, there wouldn't have been any left at noon.
I don't know when they sold the last one, but I was actually astonished there weren't more people, even though, again, some of the factors that were in favor. And
Yeah,
maybe some people blew their Christmas budget already.
could be. Could be. If they didn't find out about it until late, they didn't have any money left. Yeah, I mean that's kind of cool.
There was this fun Haitian dude in front of me, and his mom showed up, and a bunch because I made me, I'll talk to anybody.
Yep.
So I befriended a couple of the other nerds, Christian and Luke, and we were asking the dude, so wait, are you gonna go home and play it? And his mother's like, no, he has to wait to Christmas. And then we're like, oh, geez, that's harsh.
That's
Well,
harsh.
are you in the kind of house where you can open one present on Christmas Eve? She's like, no.
No, he will wait till Christmas Day.
And so Christian's like, well, can he open it at like midnight on Christmas Eve? No, when I get up on Christmas morning.
He has to
But,
wait for mom to get up even. Jeez.
Right. And this was like this wasn't like a little kid. This was like a big dude. He was
But
and
that means
you
mom
know,
was paying for it.
like, a foot taller than his mother, but and big. Like, but
Yeah.
yeah, you're not, hey, if mom says he can't, there's no way this dude's playing with his PS5 until Christmas Day.
Yeah, I'm usually the sort that waits a couple years. Although the PS5, didn't that debut around last Christmas?
It's been around for a year. And the funny thing is, I have not been ridiculously jonesing for one. I kind of had this attitude of, if I can get one, I'll get one.
Yeah.
Otherwise, not a big deal.
Yeah.
But when I realized this morning that, holy crap, I'm going to get a PS5, I actually got excited.
That's cool.
And it's a beautiful console. I've spent a little time with it today. No Man's Sky on it is chef kiss. And then it's, there's a couple. I got the Matrix Resurrection demo game that I haven't had a chance to fire up yet. That's supposed to be amazing. That uses Unreal Engine 5. Remember
Cool.
Unreal Engine? We were talking about that a little earlier.
Yeah.
Yeah. Metaverse, baby.
Cool.
And the Spider-Man game is supposed to be really good. And then there's a game, who are the guys who did Borderlands? I don't know.
Isn't that Bethesda? No.
No, not Bethesda. They made a pretty pretty hot game.
I can't remember.
Let me look at
Jason would have known if only he'd
because
shown up tonight.
it's in my library. The hell. Deathloop.
Yeah, I wouldn't have got that.
Oh, it was published by Bethesda. I thought it was the
There,
guys that did
see,
Borderlands.
totally, it's Bethesda.
But Deathloop is supposed to be really good, and it was on sale for like half off on the PS Store, so I bought that.
Cool.
And I already ordered one of my sales AEs gave me an Amazon gift card instead of Red Hat reward points, so I used that to buy an external 2 terabyte drive that'll show up next week.
Can you connect that to the PlayStation? Is that what you're getting?
You can, and you can use that to store more games.
That's cool. I'm glad it's expandable like that. It's not using proprietary hardware like what was it? The Xbox that people had figured out how to modify, but you were supposed to be buying it from them.
Yeah, Sony's actually been always very good about giving you instructions on how to upgrade the internal drives or to let you attach external drives. They're totally cool with that. Which is weird thinking about Sony, right? But
yeah, I've for whatever reason I've always jived better with Sony consoles than I have Microsoft consoles, and I don't know if that just goes back to the old days of we have to hate Microsoft, and I've just never let go of that. I know Xbox is a very popular console, and I know lots of tech people that are very into Xbox, but I don't know. For some reason, I've always felt more at home on a Sony platform.
My dad's dad was a huge fan of Sony televisions. They always had a Sony. I remember the commercials from the 70s. Sony no baloney, which is probably super racist today, but that was the commercial.
Yeah.
That was the commercial. When I was first looking to buy a console, once I could afford to do that, and it wasn't just like the kids' GameCube or the Wii, I had old college friends that were playing console games together, and they all of them had both a PS3 and whatever the Xbox was that went along with the PS3. So it didn't matter which one I bought, and I did a little research, and I realized I don't own a Blu-ray player at the time.
Yeah.
The PS3 is the same cost as most standalone Blu-ray players.
Yep.
And it's got a Blu-ray player in it.
Yep, and a game system.
And so that's why I bought the PS3. And
yeah,
I got the PS4 to play Fallout 4 because my gaming rig at the time was towards the end of its useful life, and it did not have enough oomph to play Fallout 4. So that's when I ended up buying the PS4.
Yeah, I had a PlayStation. Well, they call it the PS1 now, but the original PlayStation because a friend of mine in high school, well, he had a couple games on PlayStation and they were pretty damn cool. So I had a PlayStation.
Absolutely.
I did not get a PlayStation 2 because at that point I was in the workforce and I didn't have any freaking money. And it just didn't seem like a high priority to me. But I got a PS3 as my first Blu-ray player and my first media center, right? So I had what was the name? Play On, was it? There was a server you could run that would do DNLA, and then you could stream movies on your PlayStation locally, which was, now I run a Plex server, but that was before I had Roku's. I was using my PlayStation 3 for that, and that's the reason I got into PlayStation. I've got a PS4 now and a Nintendo Switch, but I kind of got away from Xbox.
Yeah, my PS3 is in the other room. It's not hooked up, but if I wanted to, I could hook that sucker up and play the original Red Dead Redemption on it.
Yeah.
And that one game is worth that console.
Dragon Age was mine on PS3.
Yeah.
Dragon Age Origins. I loved that game. In fact, I still have the PlayStation 3 sitting here in a bag. I take it to the DEF CON meetups with me,
I have met that PlayStation.
and we play stuff on it. But every now and then I'll hook it up to the TV right here in my office, and I'll play Dragon Age Origins because I just, for whatever reason, I love that game.
Cool story, bro.
Yep, cool story.
I should hook the PS3 back up in place of the PS4.
There you go.
That way I'll have both types attack.
So the PS5 plays PS4 games?
Absolutely it does.
That's good.
It's an Intel chip as well.
I have a PS4 in the living
it-
room that I don't really play much, but
It's got this it's this technology where a lot of PS4 games, it'll upscale the resolution and their frames per second.
enhance.
So the PS4 game, even if it's not a PS5 native version, it'll run better on the PS5 than it does on the PS4.
That's cool.
So that's kind of cool. Like visually better.
That's cool.
Yeah. So
I don't play a ton of console games anymore. I mainly game on a PC, but
I flip back and forth.
I am
I really do.
intrigued. I am intrigued by the PS5. There's no way I'm going to buy it until it's a little older. But
It might end up being my No Man's Sky platform when I don't feel like putting the headset on.
yeah,
That's why I wanted your No Man's Sky friend code so that I could have my PS5 character.
yeah.
We could get in a game together and I could get a base going where you and I have the bases in our shared game.
I'm
But
not going to lie,
I need
right?
to do a little
So
more.
I first experienced No Man's Sky in VR, and when I played it in flat mode, I was like, this is like a different game. It's almost unplayable. But through some of those expeditions, I found if I wanted to play for 15 minutes, it was so much easier to just fire it up in flat
There
mode,
are
and I
some
got used to
things-
it. And it's an equally good game now on.
There are some things that it's actually probably easier to build in flat mode
Probably.
because jerking around and trying to in VR building sometimes can feel very clumsy.
Yeah.
Although once things are built, it's really cool to see them in VR.
Space combat in VR is hands down so much better than it is in flat mode. I found piloting the ship with a mouse is almost impossible.
Well, that's
I'm not going to say
even-
almost impossible. It's not nearly as enjoyable as
Even
having
when
a joystick.
This is one of my PS4 controllers, which is attached to my PC, because even when I play in flat mode on the PC, I use the controller.
I never tried that. I'll have to try that.
It's better. It's a better experience,
I've got-
in my opinion.
PS2 controllers, and I have those Stadia controllers, which I could probably use.
You could use anything that's any Steam compatible controllers.
Never really thought about it.
Yeah, the Stadia from what you tell me, these Stadia controllers are good. So
They are
that should be-
nice.
that should be a good experience.
They are nice.
Yeah. So that's one thing. The other thing, because I don't want to hog it all of me.
You're acting like we're going long or something.
Yeah.
It's only 9 o'clock.
Swike pointed out this game he had his eye on dropped a very significant update. Project Zomboid.
Okay.
It's on Steam. And they just released what they're calling Build 41. It's early access, but like many games that are in early access for a long time, it's pretty solid. It's basically it's a zombie survival RPG where it basically says when you start the game, this is how you died. And your character is probably going to die. Like, you're not meant to last forever.
So you're a zombie?
No, you start as a human.
Oh, okay.
But if you die, either by being killed outright by the zombies or you get bitten and then you succumb to the infection, your player avatar, if you wait long enough before disconnecting or reloading, you'll see him rise as a zombie, and you can actually go kill your old dead self if you want to. But there's you can tweak a lot of stuff on the server. So I've actually I fired up a Rel 8 VM in my lab. I used a template to instantly create it. Registered it to my satellite server, patched it, downloaded all the Steam stuff I needed, and set up a Zomboid server that is tunneled through my router through my unclemarc DDNS.net connection. And Swike and I have been doofing off in Project Zomboid multiplayer, and it's kind of fun.
It's kind of cool. Is this like
Yeah.
a replacement for Valheim, or is it totally different?
It is a different swim lane than Valheim.
Okay.
Valheim is like the complete opposite in many ways. Like if you die in Valheim is hard, but when you die, you're not dead.
Right. You have to go
In
get
Project
your corpse. It's like a
Zomboid,
standard RPG.
in Project Zomboid, when your character dies, he's dead. Now you can make a brand new character who will spawn at a random house on the map, unless you say there's this feature that I ought to turn on the server called safe houses, where you can claim a safe house and then have your character spawn there. We gotta goof with that. Um, but it's the like I don't think Ajax would like Project Zomboid. I think he'd rage quit in 20 minutes.
He seems
He'd die.
very particular.
And that's fine. That's why there's different games for different
Yeah,
people.
no, exactly.
So it's got it's got geez. Yes, there's building, yes, there's crafting, there's combat, but it's not it's isometric first of all, like overhead view, like old school. Well,
Okay.
basically like Diablo 2. There
Okay.
you go. Or even Diablo 3. It's not first person, but yeah, the idea is how long can you survive? You're not, especially if you play the game at the normal settings, it can be very difficult to survive.
Hmm.
And like the world decays. Like there's settings where this is how many days in the water turns off. This is how many days in the electricity goes away.
Oh, that's
This
interesting.
is there's a
I might enjoy
there's
this. Maybe I'll have to try it.
there's an erosion setting where plants and stuff start to overgrow stuff. It's really pretty fascinating.
I have for a long time. I've had this weird fascination with abandoned places, and
It might scratch that itch.
that makes
for
me
you.
wonder if I might enjoy this, because that was part of why The Walking Dead, the TV series, had struck me. Not because of the silly drama, because I really got kind of tired of the drama. That's why I stopped watching it. But it was the post-apocalyptic theme that really drug me in, which I kind of liked. Right, like the survival and abandoned, and humanity is no longer the
It's
dominant species kind of thing.
it's right up your swim lane, then, dude. If that
Yeah,
fascinates you, you'd like it.
maybe I'll
Let me
try it
check.
out. Pretty cool.
Let me go look and see how much it is, because I think it's even on sale right meow. Project Zomboid. It's $10.
Interesting.
It's $10. It's like it's a zero risk. It's normally 15, it's 33, it's 33% off until January 5th.
Project Zomboid. Similar games you've played, Valheim.
Uh, yes,
All
it
right.
is arguably similar, but it's got a different mission
Yeah.
than Valheim is about taming the wilderness and building a civilization, or building like forts and stuff while beating bosses.
Well,
Project
it's
Zomboid is about, can I carve how long can I survive in this fallen zombified world?
it's on my wish list now, so maybe I'll buy it after the show. We'll see.
I
For $10, I probably will. I just didn't want to do that
I think
while we're
I
streaming.
based on what you've just said, I think I think you'd be happy buying it. And again, you know how to attach to my Zomboid server if you do buy it. It's the same.
Cool. Same credentials or whatever.
I don't even have a password set up. So,
Cool.
but try solo first. There's a tutorial
Yeah, I'll give it a shot.
where this angry looking raccoon teaches you stuff.
An angry looking
And then
raccoon.
there's a wiki with, yeah, there's a lot of systems in it too that are pretty interesting.
Important to learn, I assume.
All right. So Project Zomboid is my latest PC game that I enjoy.
I'll have to check it out.
Yeah.
I'll have to admit I've been playing more No Man's Sky since I got the new machine, which is exactly what I'm going to talk about next.
No Man's Sky is amazing.
It is. It's fun. And now that I have a machine that it feels like I don't have to worry about the jitter that I was getting from time to time.
Oh, great.
On the old machine, which is good. That
seemed to be really bugging you.
It really was. Well, again, like I mentioned earlier, I get motion sickness in certain circumstances in VR, and jitter is one of them. Jitter will bother me to the point where I have to log out because it'll make me feel sick, right? So if I can eliminate the jitter, it's not even about the resolution. It's just if I can eliminate the jitter, I'll be happy. Now that the jitter is gone, I'm really thinking about higher resolution, though. It's a complete rabbit hole.
How many Red Hat reward points you sitting on?
Not enough to buy a Valve index, if that's what you're saying. But
I'm just asking.
Yeah. Anyway. Right. So I've talked.
Bonus time is coming up.
Yeah, I've talked about a number of cool projects. Yeah, well, we can talk about where my bonus is probably going, but anyway. I've talked about a number of projects on this show that have been basically sitting on a shelf waiting for me to finish. And last week I took a week off. And one of those projects I had to finish because it was a Christmas present. And the other two I've actually finished. So one of them, I forget if I talked about it here, but I did talk about it with some other coworkers and whatever. And it's been a long-running thing where my sister is a fan of Sailor Moon, the anime, and the manga and whatever. She's like a big Sailor Moon fan. And probably 6-8 months ago, I had bought a 3D model of Sailor Moon to print for my wife because she's also a Sailor Moon fan. Now, hers, I printed and I gave to her, and I said, here you go, and then she painted it. This one, of course, since it's a Christmas gift, which is what I'm getting at, I wanted to print Sailor Moon and then paint it and give it to my sister for Christmas, right? So I printed it out, it might be 2 months ago at this point, and it's been waiting for me to finish. And on the break, on the PTO that I took, I finally painted the damn thing, and it came out really nice. I wish I could show it to you guys on the stream, but it's already wrapped up as a Christmas gift because Christmas is like tomorrow. Well, Christmas Eve is tomorrow, but yeah, it has to be wrapped already. So it's wrapped up, but it came out really awesome, and I'm really happy with how it worked out. If you're in our Discord, you've seen pictures of it because I posted it there because I had talked about it on the show. So that's one thing that's done. Do you remember the open source thermostat that I talked about?
Yes.
The one that like you literally get a bill of materials, buy all the parts, put their distribution of Linux on it, and then run the thing. It's based on a Raspberry Pi and I even had freaking circuit boards printed to make this thing work. Well, I got the thing all built. I did a bunch of testing to make sure that it worked, and I figured out how to get it integrated with Home Assistant months ago. This might be a year that I did that. And then I had to figure out how to actually get it integrated with my heating system at home because the heating system is older and it uses a 2-wire system, which does not have constant power, where the Hestia Pi, which is what this project was called, needs constant power because it's a Raspberry Pi. It needs to be able to power off of something, right?
Yes.
Well, on the break, I took a day, not even a day, like probably 3 hours, to just go to one of my heating zones, figure out how the zone valve that's on the thing is wired, figure out what has constant AC power, and get that patched up to the wall where the thermostat is at. And I finally have that stupid Hestia Pi up and running. It's in my kid's room because I'm a dad. And my kids always fiddle with the damned heating system. And don't touch my thermostat!
Don't touch me thermostat, SpongeBob!
So now my kids have a smart thermostat. They're happy because they can ask Google to change the temperature in the room. And I'm happy because at night I can reset it to normal. And in the morning I can reset it to a reasonable rate. A reasonable temperature. So that's finally up and running. I may write up not only how I built it and how I got it integrated, but also how I got it integrated with Home Assistant, because that was not as obvious as you might want. I basically had to, well, I don't want to go too deep into it, but it uses MQTT in the background, which is like well, whatever. I'm not going to go too deep into it, but I had to bridge the local MQTT instance to the one that's in Home Assistant, and then I was able to control the thermostat from Home Assistant. So now it's actually working, and it's kind of cool. It's not as perfect as like the Nest thermostats that I put up, but it's all open, which is pretty awesome, right? So, that's pretty cool. And AO is in chat saying set up a cron job. I can. It runs Linux. I could literally put a cron job on it to change the thermostat.
You could set up the alarm that Mr. Krabs has that
Right.
goes off when Squidward touches his thermostat. I've put the animated GIF in general chat for you.
Right. So, yes, it's pretty cool. So now my kids can't. They can change the temperature, but I can reset it at whatever interval that I'd like. And of course, the first day that it was up there, my daughter set the temperature in their bedroom to 82 degrees, and then they couldn't sleep that night. Yeah, because they're insane. Kids are insane. 82 degrees, and it was that hot. It was literally that hot when I went up to take them to bed. And then they're like, well, we can't sleep. It's too hot. Sorry. You had to touch the freaking button.
Decisions have consequences. This is a very good lesson for you.
Right.
Idiot.
So that night I set up the automations so that it would reset it at bedtime. That's freaking
Foolish
crazy.
children who I love.
Yeah, exactly. That's the downside. Can't sell them.
You gave them sudo for the thermostat. That was your mistake.
Well, they don't have sudo. They can push the button, which is what they have. Which is kind of the same thing, I guess.
They have root on the thermostat. That's the problem.
No, they have physical access, which is kind of the same as root.
Well, but couldn't you disable the ability to modify it at the thermostat itself if you wanted to?
Theoretically.
Just have it reset every minute.
Every minute, change the temperature back to what I want it.
Yeah, pretty much.
All right, and the other one is, you remember I talked about the cat armor? You said I would need Nate armor if I tried to put it on.
Andy is evil, or have the display update to a desired temp, but really it is to your program.
There you go. That's the way to do it. Anyway, I printed out that cat armor, and all I needed was little nuts and bolts to put the joints together, and I finally did that. And
I saw the picture of the cat in the armor.
Surprisingly, the cat did not flip out. We must have the most chill cat on the planet, because the cat did not.
Given up on life.
It could be. But I didn't put it on the cat. I gave it to the kids, and I'm like, if the cat scratches you, it is your problem. And they got it on the cat, and the cat does not like it, but he didn't scratch or bite or anything. But it's hilarious. And we have a small dog, which is actually a little smaller than the cat. The dog hates it. You put it on the dog, and she just stands there like, what is this? What do I do?
What the holy hell are you
And like the dog is broken. She won't walk. She won't move. She stands there like, it's hilarious.
Well, yeah.
And the biggest news I have since our last show, I forget if I talked about this on the show or not, but
the new computer?
The laptop that I used
You already did.
For quite a while. No, I didn't talk about it on the show. I talked about it in Discord.
Well, you talked about it when we were talking No Man's Sky.
Well, I mentioned it just earlier, yes, that I have a new machine, but I didn't say what it is.
Well,
so
why don't you do that?
The laptop that I was
It's
using,
like I'm trying to do
both
that.
for the show and for my video and audio editing and for gaming, was a Lenovo Legion laptop, which when I bought basically because as Red Hat employees, we got discounts on Lenovo. Discounts! But I do have a previous coworker who bought a Lenovo that it died on him in like a year and a half. And then he couldn't get it fixed because it's only a year warranty. And I was a little worried about that when I bought it. Well, guess what? A year and a half or so in, the freaking screen dies on my laptop.
Oh, no.
Now, I can plug it into a monitor, but, like, it's not a laptop then. Like, it physically is a laptop, but it doesn't work as a laptop anymore. That and the problems I was having in VR, it was great for gaming. It has an RTX 2060 with 6 gig of memory, which is great for flat gaming. Like, I've never had it gimp on any game I've ever tried to play on it. It's worked really well. But in VR, it just has a slightly higher demand because it's powering 2 displays and, whatever. but I was having some performance problems in some games like No Man's Sky, which I like to play. So I was thinking about buying a new machine, and then the display died. So I bit the bullet, and I bought an Alienware. So normally I'm not the kind of guy that buys a PC, a pre-built PC. I usually build if I'm going to build a tower. Now, obviously with a laptop you can't build, so I've bought a pre-built Lenovo. I bought a pre-built Dell before that because I was really on the laptop train. But I decided this time around, because I wanted the expandability and repairability that a tower gives you, I wanted a tower, and I was going to build it myself. Well, my gosh, do not try to buy a 3D card right now. It's insane. It's just insane. And I think people know that already. But
Yeah.
it didn't really sink in until I started looking at prices on 3D cards. They are crazy, just crazy. The video card I ended up with in this machine sells for almost $1,000 by itself right now.
Mm-hmm.
So to build this machine would have cost me almost $3,000. To buy it from Alienware cost me about $2,000, right? And this isn't like look at me, I can afford a $2,000 PC. It was actually cheaper to buy from Alienware than it was to build, which is insane. That's the world we live in right now, because of crypto miners and because of the chip shortage. So anyway, I've got an Alienware now with an RTX 3060 with 12 gig of memory.
I had an Alienware desktop. I also had a gaming laptop from Dell. I'm not sure if it was an Alienware at that time or if it was a separate Dell thing, but I've definitely gone that. I've definitely gone that route.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I felt a little bad about buying a pre-built machine, but to be honest, one, it was cheaper, right? Like 2 years ago, I would have said you're insane to think a pre-built machine is going to be cheaper than a home-built machine, because at the time they were, right? You could piece it and part it together, get exactly what you wanted for $500-600 less than you would get a pre-built machine. But nowadays, it's $500-600 more to get a pre-built machine, or get a home-built machine versus a pre-built, which is insane. And it's just because of the video card. Video cards are crazy, just crazy. So at any rate, I like it so far. It's ugly. I put pictures of it up in Discord. Someone said it looks like somebody said it looks like a paper shredder and a dehumidifier had a baby. And that's what the thing looks like. And they're not wrong. It's ugly. It's an ugly case. I wanted to get one of those suspended tower holders for underneath the desk, and I don't think it would fit in one because it's got these like curved edges to it. So it's on the floor, and it doesn't reach the second display that I used, which is the TV mounted on the wall. So I'm going to have to get a longer HDMI cable if I want to do that again. But yeah, so I've got an Alienware now. I'm one of those people. Alienware R10, if anyone's curious. It's got like 3 terabytes of storage. Part of it's a terabyte is NVMe, 2 terabytes of SSD. I'm probably going to add another drive to put Linux on, though I'm still undecided because it is a gaming PC, and I just don't know if I need Linux on it. I didn't have it on my laptop. I felt bad about that, but to be honest, I didn't miss it. Like there were there was like a handful of cases where it's like I really wish I could boot into a true bash shell and do some Linuxy things, but that was so infrequent that I almost don't think. I don't know. We'll see. Someday I might. The only complaint I have so far is the fans are super loud. I don't know if you guys can hear them in the background, but when the fan spins up, it sounds like a damn vacuum cleaner. So I was thinking about liquid cooling it. I talked to JScar, who is not only a coworker but a viewer / listener, and he suggested against it just because he had a bad experience with liquid cooling. If anybody has any experience with Corsair liquid cools, that they're closed system liquid coolers that are basically, it's a heat sink that goes to a case fan which has a pump in it which does the liquid cooling. If anybody has any experience with those, I'd love to hear from you. Did you get one? How long did it last you? Like, did you like it? That kind of thing. Because I'm really thinking about that, or I'm going to find quieter fans because it's that loud that I think it's going to detract from the podcast when I'm using it. So Anyway, I'd love to hear from folks. But I think that's my news. I don't think I have anything else to talk about today.
Groovy.
Fun stuff. Alienware.
Grats, man. Grats.
Thank you. All right, I think that's all the chat we had for tonight. We have a couple news articles, but we're going to hit the button first. Right? The button?
Hit the button.
Push the button, Frank.
So I ain't going to lie, the news is hopefully going to be short tonight. Unless you have a lot of commentary on these two things that I have in the news.
Maybe. I don't know.
There were two nasty CVEs that showed up in the past, we'll say 3 weeks. I think the first one may have already been out when we did our last show, but I missed it and didn't talk about it. And that is an NSS vulnerability. NSS, I forget what it stands for now. I could probably click on this link and tell you what it stands for. But it's basically a library that's included with many Linux platforms, Red Hat's platform included. There is a remote code execution vulnerability that affects tools you might recognize like curl. And it has to do with SSL certificate, or not SSL, TLS certificate exchanges, where a server controlled by a bad guy could pass a remote code execution over the basically the certificate verification, right? It could make your machine do bad things, remote code execution style, simply by trying to validate the certificate. So that's bad stuff. That's the second link in the news section here for tonight's show. And the other one is they're calling it Log4Shell. At the time that I was researching it, which was the Friday before my my little short vacation, they didn't have a name for it yet, and it was just CVE 2021 44-228. It's basically a vulnerability in Log4j 2, which can lead to remote code execution through logging of a JNDL string, which will do LDAP calls, right? So basically you could pass like a crafted JNDL string to Log4j, which would then call out to a remote system, which would then pass commands back to your Log4j instance. You have something to say about that?
This is not my original thought, but I forget who said this, whether it was at work or somewhere else, but it seems almost like we're getting to the point where a lot of these vulnerabilities seem to be like based on edge cases where people are wanting, like it's a friggin' logger. Why is it making LDAP calls?
Yes. Why does my logger make LDAP calls? I was actually talking to an OpenShift TAM that you and I both know at work. He's like, I can't understand what this vulnerability is. And as I'm reading about it, I'm like, well, it does this, this, and that. And he goes, why is my logger making LDAP calls? I'm like, you'll have to talk to the developer. I'm just trying to explain to you what the vulnerability is.
Like, are you kidding me? And I don't know, people bitch about systemd, like violates the Unix principle of a tool that does one job and does it well.
Yeah, why does my logger make LDAP calls?
They turn around and write shit like log4j.
Yeah, right. It is kind of crazy. But I mean, this is the principle, right? This is the reason people were upset about things like systemd, because you want a tool that does one thing and does it really well. When you have a tool that does a bunch of things kind of well, you end up with stuff like this Log4Shell vulnerability, where my logger can make an LDAP call, which is now a remote code execution problem.
Yeah,
it's freaking insane.
Right.
Or freaking SSL certificate or TLS certificate verification can cause remote code execution. Like, what the hell is that? How did that happen? And I haven't dug into that one nearly as deeply as the Log4j one, just because I was having that conversation with folks about Log4j.
Yeah, it's anyway. Hi. So yeah, the Log4j didn't impact me too much personally at work because the critical stuff was all at either the application layer or in OpenShift, and I focus on platform.
Mm-hmm.
the platform flavored CVEs are moderate
Yeah.
for the Log4j
Oh
stuff.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
so
Definitely.
they're a little calmer.
Yeah. I
But
had.
yeah, I feel bad for my OpenShift and middleware buddies.
I had a customer. They didn't say a damn thing about the NSS vulnerability. When I sent that to them, they didn't
I
even respond to it. I sent them the
yeah,
alert, and they didn't even ask any questions. But the
what
Log4j one, they asked me all kinds of questions, so I had to dig into,
I think
what it is, what's affected, that kind of stuff.
NSS didn't really get a lot of press.
Yeah,
Um,
Log4j did.
I had a similar. I was surprised with how unconcerned my guys were about NSS, but yeah, Log4j, there people were losing their shit.
Yep.
And the hilarious part is we keep talking about Minecraft, right? That's how they discovered it.
Yes.
Because people hacksered Minecraft servers with it.
Yeah,
It's
the
funny.
the Minecraft server I have in my basement, which is completely private, by the way, is probably still vulnerable because I didn't bother patching it because it's all private.
You're
Um,
terrible.
I know I'm terrible.
Terrible sysadmin.
But yeah, I haven't. I was tempted to play around with it, and I haven't yet. But yeah, I'll probably update it eventually. I just haven't yet. It's been very low on my priority list with Christmas and with sick family members and with everything else going on. I'm like the Minecraft server in the basement that no one can access except me and my kids. Right? And I'm not that worried
So
about it.
it's not presented to the outside at all.
No, it's not.
So I wouldn't worry about it.
Yeah, it's not. It's not. It's all private. So yeah, that's really all the news we had for tonight. There's probably other news articles. I intentionally left it light because I knew we were going to go long on the
I
Metaverse thing,
I
and
think
we did.
I think we had a good show tonight, but I really
did.
think it's time to put it away.
I think you're right. I think you're right. So, folks,
But yeah,
what? Go ahead.
but I think this was I don't know if we're ending 2021 the way we want it to be ending it. I
Right.
think we would have maybe liked to be things be a little more normal, but I certainly enjoyed this year's Iron Sysadmining. You and I had a fantastic time last weekend with our wives. We went and saw Trans-Siberian Orchestra.
We didn't even talk about that in the chat.
That was a hell of a show.
It was a hell of a show. TSO, folks, if you haven't seen them live and you're at all interested in their music, you should go see it. It was a hell of a show.
It was more than it exceeded my expectations in every way.
I did get lasered in the eye once during the show.
You'll recover.
You'll recover. Yeah, I've already recovered. But yeah, don't look directly at the lasers. It's a bad idea.
I think they're supposed to really calibrate them, so it's very difficult for people to accidentally look at them. But yeah.
Oh yeah, it's not like it made me blind, but it did sting for a sec. You know how bright lights in the eye kind of make you.
Bright
squint.
light!
Yeah. That did happen. But I mean and I know you were unimpressed by this when I talked about it with you after the show, but it snowed. They had it snow in this freaking thing.
I was not unimpressed. I was just like, yeah, you were surprised we had the tech to do that when we make artificial snow every year for mountains. The fact that they used that for the concert was impressive.
I knew we had the tech to make snow for ski slopes, right? So this was not like a revelation to me. I'd never seen it used at a concert, but I guess why would you unless you're Trans-Siberian Orchestra?
And so much fire.
And there was a lot of fire.
So much fire.
There were a lot of fire, and we were close enough that you could feel it.
Oh, yeah.
And not only was there fire on the stage, they had that separate backstage with fire as well.
Fire, yeah.
And that only came out in the post show. That was like, yeah, we know at the end we're gonna have like this really cool finale, and that's when it showed up.
That's when there's gonna be even more fire.
It's like we know there was fire at the beginning of the show. Now there's double the fire.
It was pretty spectacular.
It was crazy. Awesome show. It was a really awesome show. All right, so we're gonna close up unless you have more you want to talk about. You said we should close the show up, and then you brought up a cool topic.
I know. Then I started to get all we had a great year, and I was going to wish everybody a Merry Christmas, Happy New Year.
Yes.
Your holiday of choice, insert it, whatever. Happy holidays.
Christmas, Hanukkah, Kwanzaa.
Yeah, there you go.
And don't forget Festivus.
For the rest of us. Today's Festivus, I think.
I'm very disappointed in you. I thought it was the 26th. Was Festivus.
Well, all the Facebookers are saying it's today. So.
I could be wrong. I wasn't a huge Seinfeld fan. That's where it came from, as far as I know. But
and I have a request for my Facebook friends.
Okay.
Please stop with the stupid postings about if you start a particular movie at a particular time on New Year's Eve, a particular character will say this supposedly deep thing at midnight. because that's bullshit. You could do that with anything.
I didn't.
It's not funny. Stop doing it.
I haven't seen any of these. Apparently, I've been sheltered.
I saw one the other day about the guy if you start the two towers at this particular time at midnight, the one guy will say, "So it begins."
But is it the extended version or the theater version?
The extended version.
Okay, so
that's
you got to be specific.
That's stupid.
Yeah.
I don't care.
I don't care.
Yeah. The only one of those that is slightly amusing is if you start Dark Side of the Moon at the same time of Wizard of Oz, the way some things happen.
Okay.
But that's not even the same thing. This is like, oh, I got to start watching this. If you start the original Star Wars at whatever, the Death Star explodes at midnight. Oh,
so what?
Stop that.
Yeah, so
I don't care. Shut up.
All the weird traditions around New Year's are, well, they're weird, right?
I'm not going to be awake at midnight.
Just like the 2020 to 2021 thing. Everyone's like, oh, it's a new year, as though the pandemic was going to evaporate, right? And then everyone's like, oh, 2021 was just as bad as 20. Well, surprise! There's no magic that happens at New Year's Eve. It's not how it works.
All the idiots didn't change their bad behavior. Why would it be different?
Right.
Anyway.
Right.
Oh,
yeah,
boy.
we could totally go off on a whole other rant and go until way into the wee hours. All right, folks. So as Marc was saying, we won't see you again until next year. I hope you all have a great holiday, a great New Year's. Don't expect magic to happen at midnight on New Year's Eve because it doesn't. It's just a man-made construct of time. If that isn't deep,
I don't care what time you start your arbitrary movie, so that arbitrary event happens at midnight.
Doesn't
You're
change
not clever.
a thing.
You're not clever or funny, and
Doesn't.
don't post about it on Facebook and think you're special.
Doesn't change a thing. All right,
wow,
folks.
Grumpy old man.
I hope you've enjoyed the stream. I hope you enjoy the show. If you do so, please go and leave us some feedback somewhere, whether it's on some manner of podcast hosting service or just joining our Discord and saying hi and letting us know that you like the show, because we like to hear that kind of feedback. If you do want to watch us live, check us out on YouTube or Twitch. Just look for the Iron Sysadmin podcast. You can join our Discord community. There's a link in the show notes, or if you go to ironsysadmin.com, you can find it there, as well as any other way you want to reach out to us and find our social media outlets, whatever, Facebook and Twitter. Just look for the Iron Sysadmin podcast. And folks, I'm tired of talking tonight. You can support the show on Patreon. You can do that too. Patreon.com/IronSysadmin. And with that, I think we're done for 2021. We will see you in 2022. And maybe in some kind of an open metaverse, folks.
Hopefully.
We'd love to hear from folks that are interested in trying to build an actual open metaverse instead of the Android-controlled...
The Zuckerverse.
The Zuckerverse.
Humans, you are my products.
Yes.
I need all of your money. You must all wear your Oculus.
That's what I'm so worried about. That we're going to be locked into the Oculus hardware. And all of the other hardware that's on the planet, unless it's compatible with Oculus, is not going to be usable for, quote-unquote, the metaverse. Bad things will come. I don't want to end the show on that bad of a note. So, folks, think of something cheerful, because I can't think of one. Got any final words, Marc, for 2021?
So long, beautiful. I'll channel Josh. So long, beautiful party people.
Beautiful party people. All right, folks, we'll see you next year. And have a Merry Christmas or a happy whatever it is that you celebrate. All right.